Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I have to do a pre-introduction here. Today is Wednesday, October 1st. I started this video yesterday. And during the course of the day, well, sometime around dinner time, Candace Owens dropped some bombshells, which, again, part of the show, whatever. But it's kind of hilarious because she's calling bullshit on Turning Point USA in a huge way. So it's great, in terms of something we've never seen before. And then right after that, I was looking through the comments somewhere around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I got all these hilarious comments. And so they were after a lot of them were in response to my video where I talked about I had that late night comment session where those people were that one guy said that I was overcompensating for something by talking about my wife, right? And so there's some more of that stuff. So that's great. That's towards the end of the video. But this is going to be an epic video for a lot of reasons because the story's getting great in a way that we haven't seen for one of these staged events. So no matter how scripted it is or whatever, it's just content gold. I really enjoy covering this at this point, and especially this part about Candace Owens going after her, like she's a jilted lover. And so, anyways, let's get into it here. Greetings, brothers and sisters. So this is something that's very important that nobody thinks about and even less care about. And it's about developing the talents of the youth, right? In a healthy society, a healthy family-based society, there is a need to understand the gifts that every child has, right? The particular talents and gifts that every child has, and have a system in place that develops those talents, first of all, recognizes those talents and develops them across a large spectrum of various possibilities, right? There would be expertise in developing those talents, not just by what a child shows that they have, the abilities that they have, but also through spiritual intuition, whether it be some form of astrology, some form of just reading and seeing what a child is as a soul, identifying the child's potential, even if the child isn't showing that potential outwardly, being able to assess this, and then setting up a system in which the child's maximum potential can be reached in that field and whatever other fields there are of activity, right? And, in our school system, it's nothing like that. Our school system is to crank out workers, not just our school system, but in every way that we deal with children, right? Every way that child becomes a part of society. There's cogs in the wheel, and a lot of people are just misplaced. They have hidden talents that were never actualized. They have a destiny, a soul destiny that was never manifested, and there's things and abilities they have that there's no place for them in society, right? That there's nothing out there, there's no field of activity for them to exercise some of their internal abilities. But you see this in school. There are kids who excel in academics. You find your place in everything. There's some kids who excel in verbal communication and in literature and English, and some kids excel in math. Some kids excel in music or sports, right? You have these different genres. Like some kids just hate a certain subject or certain whatever it is. Some kids are just, remedial in their ability for school across the board. They're just not good at anything. Some kids are better mechanically and using their hands and end up in like some sort of a trade school, these things. Other kids, excel, like I said, excel in sports. And there's programs out there for kids to excel in sports, right? There is, talent developers on every level. Athletics, right? Player development and coaches and expertise and things like that. There's things that within them, maybe the medical professional, but allopathic medicine, not a different form of medicine like herbal medicine and intuitive medicine, where there are people who have those abilities and gifts, but it isn't really going to work out in allopathic medicine. It's a very limited field of activity, right? And so usually what you have is like the problem children in school, the ones who are remedial in their ability to do education through sometimes lack of interest, sometimes lack of intelligence, sometimes because of behavioral issues and abusive stuff at home, food. Now, of course, kids with ADHD and, all these different types of psychological issues. Kids are on medication, they're eating crappy foods, and they can't get through a day of school. So you have those kids who are the troublemakers. And then you have the average kids who are, they're just chugging along and going at an average pace. And then you have the gifted and talented, right? Then maybe all across the board or just in one subject or another. And the gifted and talented in our system are usually not identified, certainly not in the school system, and often get neglected because most of the energy and time goes into dealing with the kids who are underperforming, right? The teacher spends most of their time and energy with the poorly behaved kids or the kids who are struggling in one capacity or another. But usually there are tiers. There's at least 2 levels, if not maybe 3 or 4 levels of kids who are doing something because it's mandatory and they suck at it and there's no future in that for them. The kids who do it on an average basis could be something like music. They might dabble in it with it. They might take lessons and, a little bit of this, that, or whatever it is. I mean, kids who are good at foreign languages or something. Then there's ones who excel and they become even professionals or teachers in the fields of music or like in foreign languages. And there's people who become multilingual, and you have the highest level, right? You have the kids who are just, they have a gifted and talented, and they have a desire and an inner compulsion to pursue that activity and master it in some degree. They become masters, right? People who become masters of athletics or of coaching athletics or any number of things, right? People who reach a higher level. They go to the highest level of that art form and activity. And there are things in our society that are valued. Making money is, you can go to a high level in that activity. Being an actor or actress or doing something celebrity-oriented, pop music or something, not so much classical music or something that's more extravagant, but something that's more popular, anything that appeals to the masses, right? And so the majority of activity is centered around appeasing the dumb fucks, right? The majority of the people. The people who are the biggest demographic in terms of potential customers, potential fans, right? So, like if I tailored my videos for specific groups or audience, even though I'm not one of those people, like I faked like I was one of those people. Like I faked I'm like a right-wing truther, or I faked I'm a Christian, or I faked I'm a, whatever number of different things are. I would have a bigger audience, right? The more you dumb down the message, the more you widen your audience to include the dumb fucks, and I'm not saying that in a, well, I mean, you can't say dumb fucks in a complimentary way. But, people who just don't give a shit, who, are just doing stupid things, who are just plowing through life, NPCs, people who are unconscious and they're not curious, they're not looking to advance, they're not looking to better themselves, they're not looking for any sort of truth. They're just sort of checking the boxes. They're just, bumping into shit, going through life. This is what I mean by that. People have just sort of given up, or they just don't have the ability to ascend to a higher level. And so in all of those art forms, all the things I talked about, those have to do with material excellence, the expression, a person's expression in the material field, whether it be education and, mathematics, all those types of things, sports and entertainment, like social media that people do, business, wherever it is that they find a way to sort of excel and make money and become famous and become, excellent at something, even master some level of some activity. That's all the material level. But the most important thing, the highest thing, is spiritual level. And there's nothing in our society for that. Pretty much every religion has at least 2 tracks. They have the track for everyone else, the average track, and that would be religion, where people believe in a religion, and the religion tells them what to do and how to do it, and they make some sort of promises for them that the religion can't keep. But the people have a modicum of desire to connect with God in some way, or at least to pursue some, community or whatever it might be that attracts them to a religion. But there isn't some part of them that wants more, that craves a deeper connection with divinity. And that's when a person penetrates to the spiritual level where they find divinity within themselves. And then they're on this spiritual pathway that is infinite, that there's no end to it, right? It goes beyond your physical existence, right? And so there are people who plug into that. And when they plug into it, there's like they have an essence. They have a spiritual energy. They admit God's love and they attract people to them. People are attracted to them. But the majority of people can't even see it. There are some people who pick it up. There are some people who also have some inclination towards the spiritual life, right? Like you see, like with, for Christians, it would be Jesus when he was alive, and then his disciples, and then all the dumb fucks who don't know anything about it. They can't see any difference between Jesus and somebody else, because the hardest thing to identify is someone with spiritual gifts, because they might be there in latent form as a child. You might be able to see it in the child. The child might appear special and spiritual, thoughtful. There's something about the child that you special in some way, but it's very subtle, because it's not something that's outward. It's internal. And when somebody catches fire in their spiritual pursuit, there's usually events that happen. There's things that that create a catalyst for that spiritual talent to emerge, right? And to what level it emerges depends on societal factors and time and place and distractions and how much energy that person is using up just dealing with the outside world, because oftentimes spiritual people struggle with society, struggle with various things, and are often outsiders, right? But when somebody does reach high levels of spirituality in America and Europe, they're killed, even if they just become spiritual people, average people who have jobs and families, but also have a spiritual side. Our society doesn't want that. Our religion doesn't want that, and that's one of the downsides of Christianity. Because in Christianity, there's no place for gifted and talented people. In fact, people who have become saints and higher developed souls in Christianity have been killed, right? And so you get people like Charlie Kirk. You get these televangelists who are, they have some ability to work a crowd. They have some charisma, and they can read scripture, and they're smart enough to be able to make it sound like they know what they're doing. But really, they're businessmen. They're people that are good at generating money. They're people that are good at networking, and they're good at connecting with people in a way that makes them seem like they have something spiritual going on, because they talk about God this and God that. And for dumb fucks, it makes it sound, oh, that guy's a godly person. He's talking about God, he's a godly person. And they put on an act. They put on some robes, not in the case of Charlie Kirk, but, they put on some kind of spiritual garb, and, they become priests and monks and sannyasis in India, whatever it is. And they're oftentimes grifters and people who are good at making money. They have maybe a little bit of connection to God, a little bit of a divine knowledge, but they're mostly just frauds. And they convince the dumb fucks, because, dumb fucks are, good at getting fooled and are not awake enough to do anything about it, right? And so one of the saddest things in our society that there isn't a way for spiritual people, they go into these New Age practices that are often very self-centered. They're very egotistical. They're about the ego and not the soul, right? Everyone has an ego and everybody has a soul. And, the Oprah Winfrey New Age people, their connection to God is about how can I use my spiritual side to make my life better? How can I, find a way to connect with God so that I can have a better life? And that's the wrong way to go about it. It's the exact opposite. What you do is you suffer in your physical life, so that your life of your soul can move forward. The life of your soul can be free of any bondages and attachments and things that's holding its back. So any sort of pain and suffering that you go through, and through that process, you're able to go deeper into your spiritual journey. And most people don't want to hear that or have no interest in it. And so that's what I cover here. Because there's lots of shit out there for dumb fucks. And for people who are, this is what Jesus did. Jesus ascended from his religion. He left his religion behind. That's why I say the Old Testament shouldn't be part of his Bible. And he had an internal relationship with God. And it wasn't something like he was chosen or he was, I guess he was destined. Spiritual people are destined. But it wasn't until after he died when the controlling people that control everything took his religion and hijacked it, changed the words, changed the meanings, and made it appeal to dumb fucks, that Christianity took off. And so if you look at the great spiritual beings and saints, they only had a handful of people that recognized them as being spiritual. It was only after they died and that the powers that be took their noble teachings and their, whatever energy that was in their movement and monetized it and changed it and dumbed it down for the dumb fucks. And that's been the curse of humanity. That, dumb fucks don't look to rise up to a higher level. Human beings don't look to rise up to a higher level. And even if they do, it's short-lived and they get dragged down to the abyss like everybody fucking else. And that's why our society's cratering. That's why we never get off the ground. Because our higher nature, the nature of our soul, is being undermined by our egotistical pursuits. And that's why I cover here. And this is why I cover things for a small group of people. People who aspire to be something more than they are, aspire to go beyond the bullshit narratives that they're given, the indoctrination that you're given on every level. On every level of your existence, there's an indoctrination system. And it's a way to make you a cog in the wheel, to denut you in a sense, de-heart you, get rid of your individual fire, your fire for any number of subjects. And the most important one would be a desire or a craving to connect with God, to move closer and have a relationship with God. And that's the first thing they want to get rid of, your ability to have a relationship with God. And the way they do it, they give you a bullshit religion, where if you're a spiritual person, you go into that religion and your spiritual process is retarded, right? It is turned into something less than, right? It is stifled into some dumbass religion. And if you start to excel, they find ways to undermine you and, corrupt you or buy you off or do whatever to make you give up on your spiritual pursuits. And so that's, my comments about all this stuff that I talk about comes from that place, and a place of personal knowledge of this process. All right, with that in mind, let's get into it here. Okay, so I want to start here where I talked about this last video. To support the Kirk family, and they've got over $2 million in donations here. But also, they had all the donations that came through various, that telethon they had and through this website. And, I think they've gathered tens of $1 million. And she owns that, right? And she's now a single mom, one of 7 million single moms. She's probably one of the most well-off, if not the top single mom in the world in terms of her economic stability and her support system. And she just got another $2,400,000, probably from a lot of people who can't afford it. We're propping her up for her bling and her bullshit stuff. And even though lots of people recognize her as being somebody who's, kind of a piece of shit, grifter, there are people who are still giving to this defunct organization that is, a part of some staged event. So, I say this all the time. The longer that something goes on, right? So when Trump was supposedly assassinated in that fake assassination attempt, it lasted, the story fades after a while, right? Because it's not true. But they keep on bringing it back up. And so the stories of where there's some kind of mass shooting, and you hear about it one day, and then it's gone. Like they don't bring that event back up. I mean, there's people being killed every day, right? People being murdered every day, hundreds of people every day. And some stories are not national. And most stories of murder are not national and even local, and they don't have any long term. The local ones, it's whatever local news and whatever local interest there is, right? Kids disappearing, there's all this kind of shit. But the ones that seem to last forever, they have to be controlled in some ways. Ones that are national stories, the Jeffrey Epstein story that just keeps on coming back around, things like that. The ones that are disappeared, they want to hide from you. You might hear it for a day or two, and then it's like, oh, nothing to see here, and they move on, right? But her thing with Charlie was obviously something that they wanted to have a lot of run with. I don't know how much the mainstream media is talking about it, but there's still lots of details and aspects of this story that keep on unfolding, right? And so let's go to this thing next here. So let's go back. I want to go back to the interaction with Trump and Erika Kirk on stage after Trump gave his speech. We'll get back to that in a second. But after that, this happened. Now they're playing this song, but that song wasn't playing. It was God Bless America. Now she knows the cameras are still on her, right? She's got her fake smile, and she'd be performing just for the people in the room. But there's multiple cameras. You see there's cameras everywhere, and they're still filming. Now Trump wanted this big thing, and she seems to be listening to somebody here, and then she busts out her smile, her patent. Look how happy I am. I'm not dead. Fuck my dead husband. I want to laugh and enjoy myself. I mean, I can't grieve forever, right? And then there she is there touching her hair, Anusha, looking over there, all looking at something. Anusha's staring at her like, oh my God, she's so crazy, right? But right before that, like this is a weird thing that happened, right? And whoever did this is showing what's going on in the room from this angle. There's multiple camera angles. People are filming everywhere. And then they have, Charlie, like St. Charlie is sitting here, only waist high. But So my wife sent me an email usually she sends me things through text. And, I was going shopping. And I saw something that said Erika and Trump, and I thought it came from a text because I was driving. And then when I got home, I looked at it, and I couldn't find it. Then I looked at my email, and I found it here. And I was like, well, what does this have to do with Trump? So this is Erika Kirk, did this thing. I don't know if this is a fake picture. But does this have so this must be the Trump International Hotel where she was a part of the Miss USA pageant. So that's when she would have first interacted with Trump, right? And she was kind of a big girl, and she was a little bit older. She was a little bit too old for Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, right? But that was her first association with Trump. Now, there was a video out where I saw her talking about women and they should dress modestly, right? They should dress and this is a weird thing because you're in a bikini. You're in basically your underwear, but you're in a hotel where everyone else is clothed. And then you're going to go back to your dressing room. And Trump had said on Howard Stern that he could go back into the dressing room and the women were sometimes half naked or fully naked and getting changed, even Miss Teen USA. And he could go in there, and the girls were told that they were supposed to go and physically touch him and, tell him how great he was. And he said he got to go in there because he owned it. And he was inspecting the girls, which is, this is a crime. This is a felony, what he was doing, right? But this is, where she was a part of that. Trump bought the beauty pageant so he would have access to these girls. And, it's something to remember that she was a part of that thing. And someone who became, she's always been Christian, according to her story, but she was totally willing to dress in a bikini and, flaunt her body, which, she opposed later on. It's like she said women should dress in a more modest way, which was what Christian women believe, many of them, the ones who are, some of them wear head covering and, are more covered up, and then they, they're just, this undressing is just for their husbands, right? Like there's, lots of Christian women who believe that, and she, said that she was one of them. But let's go back to this other thing here. So let's go back down memory lane here to, I don't know, like a week ago. And Trump decided that he wanted to do a big shindig for Charlie Kirk. I guess he might have paid for it. I saw some shitty video that obviously wasn't one of these shitty little videos that people make for clicks. Like those little crappy, videos with some AI voiceover thing. And so I'd look into it. But whatever his involvement, he decided that he was going to give a big speech at somebody's death. And I don't remember a president doing that. I don't remember in my lifetime a president doing that. A president putting on a big shindig. I mean, if you look at the people here, there was the president, there was his wife, there was J.D. Vance before her. I mean, the president's the closer, right? There's the secretary. There's that fucking dumb motherfucker right there. There's this guy, that fucking guy. There was the Secretary of Defense. There was the Secretary of Homeland Security, right? There's this chucklehead CIA motherfucker. This guy's political advisor, whatever his role is. And these guys, right? Who the fuck is that guy?
We created countless memories.
Oh, he's a nobody. But, these are the people here across the board.
Forget the name Charlie Kirk.
Woo! Fucking woo! All these different people here, right? And so this went on for 11 hours. I mean, these famous people here, whatever it is, and massive turnout, right? It's this big stadium thing. So in my lifetime, his death is being celebrated like none others. Here's this.
Our strength is found in God's design for our role. We are the
little dab will do you. But she kept on dabbing herself like she you never saw any tears or snot, right? If you ever watch that guy, any of the Taylor Sheridan TV shows or movies, he's really big in the women snotting, or the men who are crying snotting all over the place. It's a new thing in movies and TV shows. Like now they get extra. They really want them to snot, right? They don't want them just to cry. They want them to have just a complete face leakage of the face, right? But you never see any tears or snot coming out of her. But she's always dabbing those places.
guardians.
She said, "All right,
We are the encouragers.
I'm not good enough actor to cry. What do I do?" So every once in a while,
We are
dab.
the preservers. Guard your heart. Everything you do flows from it. And if you're a mother,
I'm good at making a little pouty, sad face, to make men go, "Oh, what's wrong, honey?"
please recognize that is the single most important ministry you have.
Okay, so when you're going to dab for snot, I'm like, there you go. You got a moment here. They're applauding. You snot with it. Oh, I'm snotting out of both nostrils. Snot's there. And then I'm gonna dab my eyes in a second here. So, not unhappy looking. Wow, it's and so Trump comes out, right? And
America great again. How do you say you're going to stop it?
how are you gonna say you're gonna stop making America
And
great
Charlie
again?
understood that when Charlie finally looked up and spoke, he smiled through Charlie practice.
So he got all these political people. So he was recognized, and they're talking about him being persecuted. He had all this, he had basically the whole right side of the Republican government, from the president to vice president to secretary of health and all these other people, all the way down, and all these other celebrities, and he's being celebrated, but somehow he's being persecuted, right? And if he was a real spiritual person, this wouldn't happen, because the stuff that he would say would piss every one of these motherfuckers off, right? If he was really being like Jesus was, he would say things about all these corrupt motherfuckers and all their bullshit things, especially this piece of shit right here, right? But then we get to the end of this thing. I'll go back here.
He believed in values that we should all believe in. Charlie created
What are those values that you speak of?
something very special. It's called Turning Point USA. And under the leadership and love of Erika, it will become bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
Woo!
So, Charlie, we all want to thank you. We want to say a very loud God bless you, Charlie. God bless you for what you've done is incredible.
So incredible, Charlie. You dying like that. Nobody died like you, Charlie.
And God bless Erika and the children. God bless the United States of America. And could I ask Erika, please come out. Erika, please
Come on
come
back out, Erika. Come
No,
out.
thank
Take a final bow. So this interaction is really weird. You know, I covered it before, but I wanted to revisit it here. So here she comes, right? And so, you know, like, she's supposed to be crying. Like, so she's been laughing and joking around, and she's been doing this for days. She's been planning these big events, monstrous big media events. I mean, this is like a convention. This is like the Republican convention they're rolling out here, right? And, you know, she's a part of all these things. There's, you know, speech writing and how, her dressing and her makeup and all these things. And, you know, she's supposed to be grieving. And, you know, grief is a private thing. This is so performative. There's, you know, 20 cameras on her, different angles, and there's 60,000 people here. 10 million people are watching this thing, even more. You know, 7 or 8 million just on Turning Point is being broadcast in other places. So, you know, multiple, I mean, it's being watched by tens of millions of people, then watched bits and pieces of this big event. There's going to be memes, so many memes of these interactions, right? And everything that she's doing is being, you know, seen by so many people and being judged and whatever, right? And she's got to come out. And, like, why is she sad in this moment? She just gave her speech, right? No real tears. You know, everything's done in front of a camera. And she comes out, and then she's like, okay, you know, and Trump's not a hugger. He's not a warm person. You know, there's people who, you know, who are not, who don't want to be hugged by strangers, right? And, you know, he's supposed to be comforting her, but isn't like, you know, it's a moment where it's so fucking performative. You know, it's in front of all these people. And that, you know, you have other people in your life that you know, you hug regularly. You know, she seems to be a hugger. Like maybe her dad and her mom and her brothers and whatever she has and relatives she has, people in her life, right? And none of those people are present here. The people that she works with, people are close to Charlie, they have a big support system. And she has those people who, you know, you have that go beyond your artificial social creation, you know, your social persona that you go out there and you have to perform. And then you got your real life people. Like every famous person has real life people behind the scenes in their life. You know, people who are their spouses, their people, their managers, you know, people that are close to them. People that see them when they're not all, you know, performative, you know, the people in their inner circle. She has an inner circle, right? But she comes out, she's got these big ass hands. And then this whole thing where now Trump is not into it, right? Like he can't wait for this thing to be over. He called her back out there. He was going to comfort her a little bit. But she's going in for the whole, you know, like he's fucking Santa Claus. This whole thing. He pushed her away, gives her a smooch. And they go out there together. And she looks up again. She's trying to make her sad face. But again, she's not really crying. This is her sad little face. I'll make my sad face. You know, her dress with the black and the white and this thing. You know, there's a comment that I didn't get to, and somebody sent me a video about it. The woman, her name is Carla Gigino, something, it's Italian name. She played the lead in The Snake Eyes, and she plays somebody like a secretary of state or a vice president or something in a movie now where she has the last name of Kirk. Is that right? I think that's right. I'll read the comment later. But somebody sent me a little clip on it. I didn't get a chance to cover it. But, you know, there's more to that story, like all these things, the predictive programming. But then this is weird. Okay, so they're here together, and she's crying. He doesn't give a shit. He didn't shed one tear for Charlie because Trump is dead inside. Like, he's not an emotional person. He's got those tiny little fucking hands. And he used this as an event to gain attention for himself and push his agenda and get away from the Epstein shit, because he's a perv fucking guy who would molest these young girls, who go in there and, he would go into their dressing rooms, right? He would go into their fucking dressing rooms.
My daughter is beautiful, Ivanka.
By the way, your daughter.
She's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, I go out with somebody, and she's like 21, and she's talking about, what are you doing? And she's studying algebra. And
So what?
And it's like, it was always embarrassing for me to walk in. It's too young. 30 is like a perfect age.
Absolutely. She has enough life experience.
Until she's 35.
Too much life experience.
What is it at 35, Howard? It's called checkout time.
And you're probably, I would say, the greatest judge of beauty on this planet. In fact, I would create a TV show for you where all you did was just judge women.
Now, that may be the best idea of all.
It's a simple thing. It's a half hour, and we strip it out all over the country.
I would say I'm the all-time judge.
You own this pageant. You go over. You're meeting the girls and stuff. One of them comes up to you and says, "Mr. Trump, you're a very sexy man.
You're a beautiful man. You have fantastic hair.
Well, you're a powerful man, right? Right? You're a powerful man.
Right.
I want to sleep with you." Now, you're not the type that would say no.
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right. No, but you see a beautiful woman. You want to have that. You're a guy who likes to have everything, right?
Well, couldn't that be construed, however, as
conflict?
Yes.
Well, I don't see it as a conflict.
It could be a conflict of interest, but it's the kind of thing you worry about later.
Oh, I see.
You tend to think about the conflict a little bit later on.
The question is, how can it not be construed?
No, I mean, some of these foreign girls, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And,
well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant. And
no, you're not. See, you're not allowed to go in.
I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
you're like
everything...
You're not allowed to go in because you're the owner of the pageant. That's a felony. You're not allowed to go in there, right? Unless there's some kind of contract, some stripper clause, where all these women sign over their rights that Trump can go and see them naked in the dressing room, right? Unless they sign some kind of a waiver, right? But he's not allowed. This is a felony. This is, he should have been Me Too'd for this. Like, he's admitting to something here. And if it's not a crime, it's certainly immoral, this creepy motherfucker. Like, how many dads and moms want their daughters? And he also was do this with Miss Teen USA. He would go back there and walk in their dressing room while they're half naked, right? And there's a girl who talked about this. I had a clip. I don't know where it is. It's I have a compilation of this somewhere, but I'm not going to roll it out here. But she talked about how this was so concerning for her. And she was told to go up and schmooze with Trump when she was half naked, right? I mean, this is abusive.
For a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting.
Right,
I want to make sure that
you're like
everything is
doctor.
good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
Right? So he's not a caring person. He's a predator. He's not somebody who has a heart or feels other people's pain. He has empathy. He has compassion. Right? You never see him have that. He's not someone that would shed tears for somebody else's pain and suffering. So he doesn't give a shit about Charlie dying. This is an opportunity for him to get more publicity, more, whatever he's doing. Also, get them off of talking to him about Jeffrey Epstein. They're all writing the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. So going back to what I was saying earlier about Charlie Kirk not being spiritual. Like, if he was a spiritual person, he wouldn't shill for Israel. He wouldn't be on the wrong side of all these things. Trump put in martial law, and he wouldn't want this creepy motherfucker anywhere near his wife and kids, right? Like, he wouldn't be smoozing with these elites, all these things, right? They would want him gone because he's speaking truth to power. And so he has this weird moment with this tall woman, right? Like, she's like, I can't do it. Like, he says, I'm breaking down. I held it together for the whole show. And now that I'm with Trump, Mr. Trump, like, this guy's some warm, compassionate, caring person, right? Get off me, bitch. You're too old for me now. you know, like this weird thing is looking up, right? And I mean, Trump can barely make it through this performance. Look at him up, and points. He's up above. So she looks up, he points up there, and she throws up the devil's horns. Now, she could be saying "I love you," which I said in my other video, and I got so many comments from dumbasses. No, that's "I love you" because her thumb's out. But it's just performative, and whether it's the devil's horns or "I love you," it's whatever her intention is. It's neither of those things in terms of, I said all this stuff doesn't really matter. It's what she's doing to the audience, right? Like the audience, many Christians are going to see this as devil's horns. But the people that want to believe in this are like, no, she's just saying she loves her husband. Like that's the only problem, that she threw up the devil's horns. And since it isn't the devil horns, everything else is kosher, what she did. The whole performance is a fucking disaster, right? You have to be like a brain dead person to not see through it. You have to be completely unconscious to buy into this bullshit. And if it was a left-wing thing, you would see it. If this was Biden, you would see it as performative. You would see it as insincere. If Biden was doing this thing with somebody, with a left-wing person, you wouldn't buy into it at all. And I said this before, the people who could see through Biden and the way the media covered him and pretended the guy wasn't senile, he wasn't some fucking creepy snoozler sniffer of women's heads and hair and, kissing little girls and groping all over them and all the other shit that he did, all the creepy shit he did, all of his incompetence, all of his gaffes, and making him to some great president who was obviously suffering from dementia and pretending that, emperors have no clothes. All those liberals who actually believe that Joe Biden was a good president, all your relatives, all those people, and then you're doing the same thing. You are to them and to us. When we look at you, we're like, oh, you guys are dumb fucks. When you looked at the Joe Biden people saying, oh, those people are dumb fucks, how can they believe in this? They're either liars, they're performers, or, there's the people that are performing here, and then there's the audience of dumb fucks that are eating it up and donating money to this bitch and her, her bullshit fucking husband's bullshit, program that was political and evil and backing this piece of shit right here, right? And so, like, if you don't see that, you should listen. Like, you should listen to people who can see through the bullshit. You're caught into some dumb fuck spell because you don't aspire to be something better and don't want to see through the painful reality that we're fucked because there's no solution for us. Both sides are completely corrupt and completely gone to the dark side, and our sisters are imploding either way because of the moral depravity and the spiritual depravity and the economic, the debt-based economic system and all that goes with it, that our civilization is collapsing because it should collapse, right? Because an idiocracy has set in with all the other negatives that are there, like all the list of negatives that you see every day in our society. And then there she is, like this moment, oh, I'm crying so much. I mean, it's just so performative and like just icky. Like this woman just lost her husband. Get one more hug in there, and just this whole thing. Let's hold hands. We're together. This thing, I'm comforting you. Let's go. Hey, you get off the stage. Yeah, fuck. It was so fucking weird, right? It was so creepy. Like Trump is so creepy and she's so fucking weird and so performative. Let's give one last bow and look at everybody. Encore, right? What a performance. What you guys delivered. And she has that sad face. And there's a smile and they're laughing and she's singing, smiling there. Like, just uncomfortable. Like it's, they don't know how to act like human beings, right? Like Trump has never showed that he has any clue on how to be a human being, right? Like have human feelings and like appropriate human feelings at the death of a loved one. And like, neither one of them has showed that, right? There, let me put my head in here one more time. There you go. This creepy motherfucker. I don't think he smells very good, right? There's been rumors. And he's like, all right, she's off the stage and I'm going to get one last solo thing here. I paid for this motherfucking thing. I want to get my solo moment here. Just fucking weird. I mean, it's an abomination. Okay. So Candace Owens just took a giant shit on Turning Point, which I'm very happy about, and I'll get to that in a second. And while that was happening, somebody left this comment for me. I'm scrolling down trying to see if I find it here. And the person writes the following thing here. Thank you for speaking up so firmly against martial law. I am horrified that people in the country are going along with the BS. It's obscene and completely unacceptable. And so I want to respond to that just briefly here before we get into the Candace Owens stuff. Me speaking up about it has no bearing on anything. Everyone in America speaking up about it wouldn't make a difference. Maybe it would possibly delay it. I don't know. There's people in countries who know how bad martial law sucks because they've lived through it. And they hear the same old bullshit lines and excuses, and they can see it coming. And they know what's happening. They see the disruption, the people starting to go off. Like, we don't even have a real protest yet. And so they're putting this in place. But, there was this thing that happened with the Cubies when I first understood how stupid the QAnon people were, where they were calling for secret military tribunals. They wanted people like Tom Hanks to be rendered, to go against the American citizens, to lose their judicial rights, their right to due process, be taken down to a military prison and given a secret trial because some anonymous bullshit source on this QAnon bullshit thing that happened was claiming this was a plan that they were somehow involved in, and they should get out their little cereal box junior detective rings and help out because the people that were fighting the deep state need your help. All this bullshit. And they fell for it. These were people who were patriotic and were supposed to love the Constitution. But because Trump was involved and was saying things that they believed, they're willing to give up other people's judicial rights and therefore give up their own, and they're too stupid to know about it. And so people are too stupid to know about martial law, the dumb fucks. And we can't prevent it because it's going to happen. I mean, I've been talking about this for years. And, I saw it somewhere around the Boston bomber, maybe before that. I have a whole folder of it, right? But it's going to happen. And the same thing with this Charlie Kirk thing. You never get to the bottom of things. The truth never is revealed. And if it was revealed, the system would collapse. That's why it can't be revealed, because if people lost faith in the system, if something would take away their faith in the system, and complete faith in the system, and people realized how fucked we were and how messed up everything is, the system would collapse. It's only the dumb fucks that are keeping it going, right? The system right now is powered by dumb fucks. And so with that in mind, let's get to the Candace Owens thing here. Okay, it's the it's the cast of Morning Joe here. Today is the 1st of October, I believe. Wednesday, the 1st of October. And I started my video yesterday. I want to get to the Candace Owens thing next, but this is a crucial piece of information from the hard-hitting journalists over at the Morning Joe.
Lisa, we've been talking earlier about the poll that New York Times published, New York Times Siena poll about Israel. This is something, and I'll just say it, I feel like I need to say this. This is something...
You don't need to say it.
We have been warning, I specifically have been warning my friends that I grew up with, that I was in politics with, that have always been pro-Israeli. People always joked, Joe, if you ever want a key to the city of Tel Aviv, you can go in any time and they will do it, because nobody has been a fiercer defender of Israel. I spoke at AIPAC meetings, I believe.
Way to brag about this, Genocide Joe. Genocide Joe. Gumby Joe, Genocide Joe. He's not rocking the Gumby, dude.
That Israel holds a very special place in the world.
Why is it? Why? Why does it hold a special place? Like, what has Israel done that makes it a special place? It's been around since 1945, right? There's a historical Israel, the Israel of the Bible, which is whatever that is, right? And there's Jerusalem, where Jesus is born, and that could be in Palestine, it could be any country. It's a city where people would go. It's a tourist city. It would be open to whoever, right? So, there's a lot of things that the Jewish people have contributed to, Jewish inventors, Jewish whatever they are, right? Comedians. I mean, there's things that they have contributed to society. as an ethnicity, but that's not coming from the country of Israel. Has been just a nightmare over there since they forced it upon those people, especially the Palestinian people, right? So it's not like it holds some special place. It's, it's kind of a problem, right? It's a problem for everybody else, and it's a problem for themselves because, it's like there's a 3,000-year beef with the Arab people, right? Or now the Muslim people. The Jewish people and the Arabs have been beefing, and the Arabs have 1 billion, and the Jews have 12 million, right? So, like, it's the math doesn't math, right? And so they carved out this little country there in a place where everybody else hates you. Like, it's just, not like just, it's like biblical hate, right? And you hate them. It's like biblical hate, like it's biblical battle. And so it's a kind of a doomed situation there because you're in the mid. It's not like they're just on the side of one country. Like, they're surrounded by Arab countries. It's just the ocean on one side of the country, and they're boxed in everywhere. And even countries behind other countries like Iran, they have beef with, right? I mean, the whole Middle East in the area. And so it's not, it's like a doomed situation because it was forced. It wasn't like it came out of, all right, they happen to be there, right? Like, it was there was an exodus, according to the Bible. And then it became Palestine for a while, and then the UN and the Rothschilds bank said, let's make this Israel again. let's make, it's like make America great again type of situation. They forced it upon the rest of the world, and it's been a problem ever since. Like, it's taken a ton of American money and support, military support and weapons and things to keep it going. And without America, it would be absorbed.
And yet, I have been, as a supporter of Israel, deeply, deeply concerned at the Netanyahu government over the past decade, but particularly after his military generals and his intel officers were saying, okay, there are no more military objectives here. All we are doing now is causing additional suffering to the people of Gaza. And it's played out on TV. He's continued it. The New York Times did a long story about why he's doing it. And most people in Israel.
Right, so let's just, we don't need to hear this shit. But it's now 50% of the people in America no longer want to support Israel. So they're fucked. Like, that's, and of course we know everybody said this war had to stop. Now, if you're Israel, America is going to go down at some point, or you're going to lose American support, which is what they did here. And, people are going to start running against Israel. Like, they'll no longer, like, they still be able to buy politicians, and use money, but it's being talked about, right? Like, there's a switch that's been flipped where you couldn't talk about something. I mean, here on YouTube and other places, to where you can. And so, there's this, and then what's happening on college campuses. I mean, Trump isn't going to be president forever. And in 2 years, when the Democrats take over the House and the Senate, this whole thing will be up for grabs. And so they have a limited time to become a superpower. And one of the ways to become a superpower is to have, like, oil-rich areas where they can bankroll their own military development and things like this, where they could be, they're already a nuclear power over there, so they have, that, which they stole from America. So, there's those things. But something's happened here, right? And, I never thought I'd see the day. I mean, I guess the signs were there. But, they have to get Gaza. They have to get the rest of Israel. And then they have to start, if they're going to be Zionists, true Zionists, and believe that there's this land that God promised them, I always show the picture. It's a huge part of, I think, 6 other countries that would then become Israel. And those countries, they don't have enough people. Is it 12 million or 16 million Jewish people in the world? The size of those countries, they need other people in those countries. So they would have enemies within. They would have, they would have all these places that they call Israel, but it'd be inhabited by Arabs, by Muslims. And so, I mean, it's doomed. But, it's biblically doomed, right? Like this biblical curse. So that's something important to know. That this going into this Candace Owens thing, so everything shifted on Israel. Like it's the youth, right? And it isn't like the youth is, well, I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit not on the side of Israel. The youth is 100% like fired up. And now with all the censorship that Trump's put on these universities and these things, like it's fanned the flames. And so now you have these people that hate Israel in these colleges, educated left-wing people. And there's right-wing people who don't believe in this stuff, and truthers. And so you have and those people are all kind of, people in the truth community are activated, right? It's not, the people that are still on Israel's side are sheeple. And older people who don't want to change from these things, and some evangelical Christians who may or may not go one way or another. It comes out that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's death. I mean, if that becomes a popular theory, which it's being hinted at all over the place. And so, I mean, if that's part of this, whatever they're doing here, and I'm not sure why it's being done. It's something that they've thrown a switch in the story of the thing I call the show, right? So, but it's happened, right? And now we're there, and it's not, once it happens, it's like your friend who's like never really been your friend. It's like your friend who's been sabotaging you, or your whatever it is. It's like been a parasite. This is like the divorce between Michael Cohen and Trump, right? Michael Cohen was Trump's fixer. One of these things. And once it comes out, it gets ugly. Like it's a bad divorce. And so, there's no way for Israel to win back America. What is Israel capable of doing that American youth and American population will be like, oh yeah, let's rekindle that relationship, right? Like it's a one-sided relationship. And we're giving them money, and they use that money to buy off people like Charlie Kirk and politicians, and manipulate our society. And so, it's turned, and they don't seem to have the capacity to do what's necessary to make that relationship good, because they can't let go of Gaza because they need that, right? This is their opportunity. And so, and now that this stuff's done, the Netanyahu government can go, and it isn't going to do shit, right? Because, it's not going to appease people, and they could put a more liberal, pro-Palestinian government right now, but then they're fucked that way, because then they have a weak, they're weak, and then they're, everyone hates them now because of what's just happened with Gaza. I mean, all the people that, they've pissed off all those people. You think about how bad the Muslim people feel about what's going on, right? Like watching what's going on there, how much hatred there, it's just fucking bad. It seems like just such a self-destructive situation, but like I said, they're desperate because they know they're not going to have American support forever. So they're caught between a difficult, historically difficult situation where if they don't become something like of their own superpower, their own money generating, with oil and resources, and there's so much oil around them. If they can grab onto a bunch of that land and have all that oil money, and then turn into their military and all these things. But again, it's like a failed situation. So Candace Owens is whatever she is. Like, I don't know if she's a CIA operative. I don't know what she is. Like, I don't know who controls her, what's happening, why she does what she's done, right? So I was listening to this while I made dinner, because it had been 3 or 4 days since Erika Kirk went on that podcast with the sort of leadership of TPUSA, Turning Point USA. And I could tell from her earlier things here, whatever was real about this for her, Candace Owens, that what they were doing was going to piss her off, and because they were basically validating the official story, which again makes no sense, right? Because if anybody should be, if you love somebody, if your significant other was murdered, you would want especially this kind of group of people. And if your like beloved boss, like the leader of a spiritual organization was murdered, and you were one of his disciples, right? You were one of his people. The way that they portray Charlie Kirk as being this, someone that everybody loved. I mean, if you look at what Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are saying, it's similar to Candace Owens, right? Because they were friends with Charlie Kirk, and they want to see some sort of justice, at least expose the lies, right? And if any of these people were real, they'd go after Trump, because Trump is obviously covering it up too. This is Trump's government. This is Trump's FBI, right? And so I knew that there had been 3 days that had passed, and I was like, she has to, there's something great about this thing that we see now that's different than anything that we've seen before in one of these staged events, one of these questionable events, is that there's an organization that's involved, and the people in the organization are pushing for the cover-up, including the wife, who's a fucking disaster. Like totally miscast, right? I mean, as a crisis actor, she's like one of the worst. And just unlikable. Insincere and unlikable. And so you have somebody else who's like a disgruntled, jilted former employee who has as popular a following. Like her videos get more views than they do at Turning Point. Candace Owens gets in the millions, and Turning Point gets some videos in the millions, but some not as much, especially now. So she has a much bigger audience. The audience that Candace Owens is able to drive is bigger than the one Erika Kirk is. And when Erika Kirk isn't involved, unless it's Tucker Carlson or J.D. Vance, and those are post right when the body was still cold, still fresh, the dead body. I don't know whatever that means. That was right after Charlie Kirk died. So she has a bigger following, right? And she is fucking calling bullshit. And so, regardless of what kind of shill she is and what her thing is, this is really entertaining. Because the pressure that she's putting on these shills is bad. And I hope it continues, because they have to address it. Like, she is a part of that organization. They have they have an audience that's cross-sectional. And they're losing their audience. They don't have a star anymore. And they have the star David, though. They're starting to take that money. And, she's already exposed that Charlie Kirk called for an audit. And then she's going to go in on them. But first she says this.
Dispersed throughout the month. And it is also interesting to know that the Utah FBI also got a new set of employees. The state FBI department. Kash Patel went ahead and fired not only the chief of the Utah borough, but also some other people. You can see this in the Daily Mail article. They recount this after Charlie's death. Kash Patel.
So the day after September 10th, the Daily Mail, again, this is in American papers, he gutted the FBI leadership. This is fuck. This is exactly the kind of thing you do when you have to put your own people in to pull off something like this, right? They always have to do this. When they're going to run an operation, they got to make sure they have people who are democratically leaning, anti-Trump people involved.
Questions grow as it's revealed he gutted the Utah FBI leadership before Charlie Kirk's assassination. That is true. He fired the chief, among other people, and replaced her with Robert Bowles in August. I think Robert Bowles, actually, it was his first week when Charlie got shot. And he's somebody who has been in D.C. for decades. So seems to me to be an unusual placement to then want to re-up your entire life, assuming you have a wife and kids, and move to Utah. But whatever. Again, everything just feels a little too brand new to me.
Okay, so there's that. If you're going to run an operation, you have to have that. You have to have people who are on board. You have to have people who are going to sign off on it, because you can't have anybody calling bullshit, right? And you can't have, there's anti-Trump people in the FBI and, this thing. And so, that's, of all the things, of all the long list of things that are fishy about this, The lone gunman is something I will never believe. It might be true in some cases. The disgruntled, angry lone gunman, the profile they put out there, it's been a bullshit thing all the way back to JFK assassination. That we know most people believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy. So the patsy, whenever they roll out a patsy, you get caught doing one thing, and if it works, they keep on doing it, right? I mean, even with 60, it used to be 60. I'm sure it's even more now. Believe that that's the official story is bullshit for JFK. So historically, but what does that do? It doesn't do anything. Okay, they don't believe us, but we still get away with it, right? Like, there's a lack of belief, and they move on, especially now when there's a new story all the time. But I'll never believe I'll never believe the story if it's a lone person. Like whatever the story is, that part I will never believe. Because it just doesn't make sense. Like if you looked at who's better at assassinating people, it's governments. Like they're the best at it. Military, governmental operations. CIA, MI6, Mossad, any of these, they're the people that can best pull off some kind of operation. The governmental, special forces, things like this, right? The military trains snipers with a team of people and intelligence, knowing where people are, time and place, being able to get access to buildings and things, right? Where you're the government, so you can station people there, right? Like you can have people, like, you can do things to make it easier for the sniper. You can get information other people can't get. And you're backed, and you're a cold-blooded sniper who can do shit like that. You're not some emotionally deranged fucking crazy person that pulls out a miracle shot, right? Even though it's your first time killing a person. Like all the hurdles you have to get over to do that, and all the limitations that the government doesn't have. So, that's never going to be something I believe. So, I thought that was interesting. And I'm like, listening to this, it's hard, her intonation is difficult for me to get through. But I kind of knew that something was coming because she is like hinted at it, which is kind of fucked up because she's got information. Even here, she's going to tell that she has stuff that she's going to, well, let's go to that part. So like I said, we've never seen this before. Whatever they're doing here, I mean, I don't know why they're doing it. Like, I have to believe that the most likely scenario that they're doing this on purpose, that Candace is controlled, and they're pushing this, and they really want people to turn on Israel for whatever reason, and this is all part of something, right? Because it's, but even with that, we've never seen anything like this, because Israel's involved, and people are turning on Israel, and that's a new thing. We haven't seen that, and most of us wouldn't have said that would ever happen, right? And so, and Israel's involved in this war. We have Trump who's just going fucking batshit crazy and putting in martial law, right? I was watching Fox News last night. I watched it like 2 times yesterday, or 3 times. Every time I turned it on, they were pushing this idea. One segment was, there's all these people being released from prison and then murdering Americans, and they're getting all these outraged parents on. And the other thing I saw was they're talking about New Orleans being lawless, like some, Escape from New York type of post-apocalyptic city. Like these cities are just Portland now with the, Ice raids, but the New Orleans, and they got someone on there, I think it was either the governor or the mayor, and he was begging Pete Hegseth to send troops in there to his state and create law and order. And so the Fox News is going nuts with the martial law. That's their whole storyline, that these cities are out of control and that martial law is necessary. And all they need is one shill, one person who's been paid off and, whatever, influenced by Trump. That a Trumper that says, like a governor or a mayor of a big city or something, and says we need these troops in here. And, there's these states with big cities with Republican people, whatever. And they're pushing for this. It's completely fucked, right? So all those things are happening. And this turning point thing with the bad acting, fake grieving widow with her bling and her, her Miss Arizona thing, her whole beauty pageant stuff that she did, that WWE style event that they had, at the funeral and all the things with Charlie Kirk, and like him getting people, I didn't know who he was. Lots of people didn't know who he was, and he's getting this huge, like president, vice president, the secretary of defense, all these people, right? Like he's getting all that stuff, and then this organization, which has just banked, probably millions of dollars, and now they're gonna greenlight the connection with Israel, and you have this disgruntled former employee who's more popular in terms of the viewership, who's going after him, right? Like we've never seen this in a narrative like this. It's making the thing so much more interesting.
Authenticate that email because I'm very aware of what's going on, okay? And I don't know how the executives over at Turning Point USA sleep at night, okay? I don't know how you can present yourselves as a Christian organization and not be dedicating yourself to the truth. No matter what the cost is, you tell the truth. That's it, okay?
So the email she's talking about is, I think it's the email from Netanyahu. Those things. But anyways.
Hide it. You don't try to obfuscate it. You don't try to say, well, wait until the memorial event before we start looking into who murdered him. You tell the truth and you tell it immediately. And I don't think they're capable of doing that. And I have an idea as to why that is. I think the same people that were pressuring Charlie are pressuring them. In fact, I know that for a fact. So they might need my help. Okay. I'm going to state this, and I'm going to challenge Turning Point USA executives to issue a very clean statement saying that I am lying if this is not true. About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright, okay? Charlie was done. He said it explicitly, that he refused to be bullied anymore by the Jewish donors. Can you guys answer? Did he express that? Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our onstage reunion could happen?
Holy shit. So this is great. This is like a major fuck you. I don't know why she's waited this long. Whatever. But the way that they've done this narrative, because they're out there, business as usual, and they should be, like I was saying, if your spouse or your loved one or the people closest to him, his disciples there, the people that work with him, everyone who claims to love him, in terms of, certainly his wife more than anybody else, an outraged wife who wants to get to the bottom of this, right? And so they are like, no, let's close this thing down. Let's just accept the bullshit story. Think about Pat Tillman, right? Pat Tillman was a former football player, if you guys don't know who he is, and there's documentaries about this. And his family was they were homeschoolers and independent thinkers. And his brother, I think, also played football. I'm not sure it was just college. But Pat Tillman gave up his football career and volunteered to go to the military after 9/11. And they went to Afghanistan, and then he started to realize there was all this bullshit stuff going on, right? And he was killed by friendly fire when they lied about it. They tried to make it like he was a hero. They tried to present him as a patriot, who was fully aboard with the Bush administration, the failed shit that was going on in Afghanistan and all this stuff, right? You guys probably know the story. And the family, they were people who did research, and they were homeschooling, activated independent thinkers. And they did not like the official story, and they didn't like that they were trying to glom onto Pat Tillman's legacy and make it into something, right? They were calling it out. Because then when they fought it, they fought for the truth to come out, and they were, engaged in this thing, right? And that they wanted the official story. And the official story eventually came out, and it looked like they fragged him. They looked like they killed him on purpose. It was either a complete fuck up, which, yeah, maybe, or they killed the guy on purpose because he was about to come out and say shit that would have been detrimental to the military operation because he didn't like what was going on. He knew it was bullshit, right? And so, that's what his family did, and that's what families would do, right? They wouldn't just go along with some bullshit official story and let the whole thing walk. And if Erika, Kirk, and those people really wanted Turning Point to grow, they would come out and say this is bullshit, right? They would turn on Trump. They would turn on everybody. Maybe not Trump, but everybody. And they would turn on Israel, and their support would be going through the roof, right? It's like, oh my God, they tried to cover up his death, the FBI, all the conspiracy theorists, right-wing people. If their organization was like jumping on that shit, right? But they had to be complicit. There had to be people in that organization that, again, either he's dead or he's not, right? Either he got killed, and these are it's either this or that, right? Either he's dead or he's not. Either this official story is true or it's not, right? It's these two things. And if it's not, if he's not dead, and that's something. But if he is dead, then they had to be on board with it. And his wife would have had to be on board with it. Like, she would have had to be there. Like, so that, whatever that was. And if he was like an operative, they both look like they're operatives. They have a fake marriage. And they just decide, all right, we're going to get rid of this guy, or we're going to hide this guy and not kill him, or whatever. But whatever that happened there, Turning Point had to be involved. And they wouldn't get this much money if they weren't shills. And they were shills for Israel. They were owned. They were like, an operation. Because they had more support than any of these other independent people. And these independent people like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens are shills, right? So their operation was even more controlled to grow the way it was and go into these college campuses, and then the relationship with Israel. But if Candace Owens is saying here it's true that Charlie Kirk was like done with Israel, then they were saying, I just saw a little clip with Tucker Carlson, that Charlie Kirk was, their story is that he was really hurt that they called him anti-Semitic after all he did for them. Like, he was like, devastated. Like, his wife was jilted him. Like, he was being called something like horrible. Like being called an anti-Semite to him, in terms of his character, the person that they created. Or if it was legitimate, if that actually happened. But she's saying he turned on Israel, was going to bring her back. And they was done, and all of a sudden he gets killed a couple days later. And so, like, this is fucked. Like, she's just said that. And all the people who are already don't like the wife. The wife is sure she's just not connecting with people. And they already don't like these other new fucking people that are coming on. And they don't believe in the official story, and they're Turning Point people. They've donated money. They've been a part of this. Like, this is wonderful. This is, like I said, never happened before.
Lying if this is not true. About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright. Okay, Charlie was done. He said it explicitly, that he refused to be bullied anymore by the Jewish donors. Can you guys answer? Did he express that? Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our onstage reunion could happen? It's a yes or a no, okay? Let's stop this ditching. Let's stop the dodging. Let's explicitly, I want to hear from Turning Point USA that I'm lying about that. I want you to say, no, it was just, he was feeling a little bit of pressure. No, I want you to literally answer what I have just said. It either happened or it didn't. I'm either making it all up or it happened exactly as I'm saying. And while we're at it, may I ask, what is the name of the Jewish donor who sponsored the Hamptons weekend? Okay. And to Pastor Rob McCoy, were there any LLCs that you or your son were being paid through that sat outside of Turning Point? I'm asking that question genuinely. Yeah, I'm putting the fire here right at the feet of Turning Point because I am disgusted. I am genuinely disgusted. I am looking around and wondering whether Charlie's entire life was the Truman Show. None of you guys are behaving in the way that...
So that's an interesting thing, saying it's a Truman Show. that all these people around him were paid shills. So she's basically saying, so if you look at the Truman Show, Laura Linney, who's one of the most unlikable actresses. Like when I see Laura Linney in a movie, she is the female version of George Clooney. That the movie will have a everything's pointless. The ending of the movie, everything's pointless. There's no reason to keep on going. There's no purpose for life. I mean, it becomes godless, right? Like Laura Linney is Looney, and you know that Laura Linney is, you know, that great show Ozark, which had one of the worst. I mean, it was a great ending for what it was. If you've seen the show, they became a power family, which is, you know, after doing all this horrible shit as a family, just going down lower levels of depravity, they end up getting a seat at the table, which is great story because that's how it happens, but it's hard to watch, right? It's just like with the Succession show, great show, you know, great ending for what it was, but depressing, you know, the opposite of feel good, right? Right. So, you know, what she's saying here, Laura Linney was the actress that played the wife of Jim Carrey, who was Truman, right? Truman. And it was a reality TV show. They were in this soundstage. It was like a dome. And he started to realize that the whole town was fake. Like it was like a video game. The town would only come alive. Like the bank would just be sitting there unless he was, you know, scheduled to go there. He just started to show up and see all these actors and people who weren't ready for him to come, right? He was going off script. And his wife was horrible. She was the worst. And she kind of reminds me, now that she's brought this up, of Erika Kirk, right? All smiles, just totally fake, and just, you know, all these things. And there's a Candace Owens character in there who's like a plant who somehow made it into she became an actress on the set. These are all actors. And she's trying to tell him that's all fake. Like there's, you know, some woman who's infiltrated the thing, right? And so, but her saying that would mean that all these people are CIA shilled people all surrounding Charlie Kirk. Now, again, I think that she's shilled and Charlie Kirk is shilled. Yeah, I can't imagine that he's organic. But, like, what she's saying here is pretty fucked. Like, I mean, we'll go back to that. The Truman Show, that's brutal fucking shit to say. Meaning that all you guys are handled. And I don't know if we lost, I don't know how smart Candace Owens' audience is. And these are all turning point people who weren't awake and, you know, all believe that Trump, they all voted for Trump and they're all, you know, they're all fucked. These are, you know, mostly dumb fucks. But, you know, to understand what's being said here, and, I mean, this is calling them out in a way we have never seen. We've never seen with one of these things that's happened, one of these fake staged, you know, scripted events, where there's something like this, where someone who, you know, because I've been saying this, you know, I can say things like this, right? Because Candace Owens got her relationships, and, you know, she should be calling out Trump and all, you know, his administration. And, you know, if Kash Patel is putting in a new group of FBI agents so that they can pull off this event, which helps Trump and distracts from Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, she was talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, this has gotten off of Jeffrey Epstein, right? Kash Patel just didn't do that on his own, right? Like he would have to go through Trump. Kash Patel didn't say, "Hey, I'm going to go kill Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to keep it from Trump." You know, this would have to go through him and his people, the Trump people. This is not a Kash Patel decision, right? So, you know, like Trump has to be involved, and they won't say it. And Trump is complicit on all this stuff. He's not complicit. He is the guy that's just doing it, right? At least in terms of he's the actor in chief himself, right? He's an uncurious guy, but he has to know about it and the people around him. So that means the whole thing's a Truman Show. That means Trump's assassination attempt's a Truman Show, right? It's all fucking fake. And so she won't say it, but I can say it. And what I've been saying is, you know, when you think about the stuff with loved ones, you know, the loved one being murdered, you know, there's an example of what people do, right? Then there's an example of how they're dealt with. And so when a person realizes the official story is bullshit, it just creates rage and just I mean, the person comes, whatever they are as a sheeple, whatever they are as a person, if they truly love somebody and they are actually grieving, they can't accept the official story, and they become a problem. They become a problem because they're the person with the real victim consciousness. They're the person with the real grieving. So that's why they stage these events, because it's the victim consciousness and the grief that they're using to motivate people. And so they need shills and actors to do it, right? They need Erika, Kirk to go along with it. But a real person won't go along with it. And so, it doesn't come out from other people. People like me can say it and people like you can say it, because I say it and you goes, yeah, you guys are like, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Because it's the obvious thing to think. Why the fuck is Turning Point and Erika Kirk going along with it, right? It makes no sense. It's not what people would do. They wouldn't go along with it. But the people who do start to create a problem, who are organic people and ask questions and start pushing for things, the first thing they offer them is money, right? When people said to me, are you worried about your life in terms of doing the truther stuff? And I said, no, they'll be, there's a great scene in Michael Clayton. It's one of the few George Clooney movies that's worth watching. And George Clooney plays Michael Clayton. And at the end of the thing, he uncovers this big conspiracy. And they tried to kill him. And he goes to the person in charge going, I'm not the guy you kill. I'm the guy you pay off. Like, you don't have to kill me. You pay me off, right? So, like, he's disgusted that they didn't try to pay him off first. Like when, I had this thing where I said, no shekels for Paulie. Like all these other truthers and people were being offered shekels to vouch for Israel. And I'm like, where are my shekels, right? No shekels for Paulie. There should be a song out, no shekels for Paulie. And so the first thing they do is offer you money. Like that's the easiest thing. And they have money they have money to throw at you. And then comes the other levels of pushback and threats to where you just, you realize, and at some point, you just know that you're up against something that you can't combat, and you're just some individual person with no support, and you're never going to get to the truth, and you just, you go about your life, and it's something that always bothers you, even whether you take the money or not, whatever it is, it's something that's always bothered you, and you tell people, that you know what happened, but you can't do anything about it. You're up against the beast, right? But that's what happens. And that didn't have to happen at all with Erika Kirk and Turning Point, because it's like a Truman Show. They're already on board. They're already aware that they're going to take Charlie Kirk out. Now, Charlie Kirk may or may not be dead. That's just, people can all have their opinions on that. And, whatever it is. And, these are things you'll never know. And I don't care about them because it doesn't matter to me. Like, all I know is that we have a desperate government and a desperate president and a desperate media and a desperate corporate business world and desperate religions and desperate everything, because they know the system's going fucking tits up. Like they're trying to do something to preserve their own special whatever it is, their lives, their lifestyle. But they know that for the majority of people, they're fucked. Like that's, these are the signs of that happening, right? So one of the signs that I've always said is we know it's getting bad when martial law is being rolled out. Like this is if martial law is happening, we've gone to DEFCON 2 or whatever, right? And so there are signs that I knew when these things started to happen, we're fucked. Like it's, beyond the point of no return, things are going to happen. And so, this is where we're at. Let's go back to the Truman quote here.
Yeah, I'm putting the fire here right at the feet of Turning Point because I am disgusted. I am genuinely disgusted. I am looking around and wondering whether Charlie's entire life was the Truman Show. None of you guys are behaving in the way that you should be behaving, okay? There is no way you are letting these lies fly unless, as I am hearing, unless it is true that there was a big payday that was on the line. And if Charlie radically stated that he was done with Israel, if Charlie said he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause because of, and I quote, Jewish donors, the behavior of Jewish donors.
So this speaks to what a piece of shit Charlie Kirk is, because there's a genocide happening. And to her credit, Candace Owens called out the genocide, and she was kicked out at Turning Point USA for doing that. So she called out a genocide, and Charlie Kirk didn't stand by her. And so whatever she wants to say about how great it is, and her crying that Charlie Kirk is dead, Charlie Kirk gave her the boot because he chose Israel over her. And he was willing to shill for a country that was committing a genocide and killing thousands of Palestinian kids. And all the other things that Israel is doing and has done. It wasn't until they called him an anti-Semite that he put his foot down. Like, his feelings were hurt. Like, that's the story that's coming out here. And again, is it real? I don't know. But if it's real, he's a piece of shit. I mean, there's no way he's not a piece of shit. But if this is his legitimate reaction, then he's a piece of shit, right?
If he said that, yes or no, well then, I don't know, maybe some people didn't want to take that risk that he was going to, become Candace Owens.
Some people in the organization in Israel. So she's accusing Israel directly here, obviously. And then people in Turning Point for setting up his assassination. Because you have to have people on the inside. You have to have people there. If you're going to pull off an operation that's fake, you have to have all these people on board with you.
And Tucker Carlson at Turning Point USA with all of those presences, so much presence across college campuses. Maybe they didn't want to take the chance. You see, I'm just one person, so it's easy to just try to cancel my life and lie on me every second of every day. But Turning Point USA, I think, got a little bit bigger than Charlie, and I'm no longer going to allow this lie in this narrative. So answer the questions, yes or no. And I'm going to, again, challenge you to lie. And if you do lie, I'm going to expose the lies, and I'm going to start dropping videos, actually. So that's where I'm at. Enough of the games, enough with trying to allow Israel to wrangle a narrative that you know is not true. Charlie did not die pro-Israel. He did not die for Israel. He did not martyr himself as a friend of Israel. In fact, the friends of Israel were pressuring him really badly, and he was done, and he finally stood up for himself. And I'm proud of that. And I will say this, you know what? Somewhere, Charlie is watching, okay? And I hope he knows that we are reunited, okay? We're on stage right now, and the Jewish donors are very angry about it, extremely angry about it. But it feels good to know that in the end, truth is going to win. So accept my challenge or don't.
So every time she said something, they've kind of had to respond. Oftentimes not really responding, but certainly responding to it. And they have to respond to this. And if she has info that she's going to release, it's going to be a war with her and Turning Point and then Erika Kirk. And Erika Kirk is, again, she's trying to fight the evil forces and the liberals and the evil that's out there that was anti-Charlie and the death threats and the people that are against Charlie. And this is, a shit fight between a former employee and someone who has a bigger show in terms of view count than they have. And, it's a mess, right? Because you're going to have Turning Point showing up, Turning Point people showing up and asking these questions at these college events, right? You're going to have, there's going to be an inside thing. And there's obviously people leaking shit to Candace Owens. And so, there's an internal war over this thing. People who are not a part of the Truman Show. And so, again, nothing's going to happen. There's no, truth doesn't come out. And when the truth is there, but people don't see it. Because the way that they've structured things is that there's one narrative out there that's the most truthful one, right? That we talk about here. It's never on mainstream media. Although, once in a while, somebody drops something that's kind of truthful. Like when MSNBC interviewed that doctor, and he revealed that Joe Biden had obviously had Parkinson's, that a first-year medical student could diagnose Joe Biden with Parkinson's. He had advanced symptoms that differentiated Parkinson's. You have differential diagnosis, and he had, you have two things that have similar symptoms. But then as things advance, you can differentiate between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And he said he clearly had Parkinson's. But it's just one guy. This is that time when they revealed the Parkinson's doctor went to the White House numerous times. And they said it was because of some young Marine who had Parkinson's, not Joe Biden. And so it was clear he had Parkinson's, but no one ran with it. No one talked about it. Great video. I showed it numerous times. But either way, we know Joe Biden was senile, but that was a time where, the most believable story came out the one closest to the truth, or a piece of it, right? But, you know, these things are out there, but there's a sea of just bullshit. There's the official story bullshit, and then there's all the disinformation from dumb fucks and governmental shills that just, and now with bots, people putting out content that is all red herrings, you know, all distractions. And so you never get to the truth. And, you know, and you don't need to. Like, I lost any sense of caring about any of these events, right? You know, all I need to know is the part about divinity within me, the, you know, connection to God, working for God, you know, all these things, the things I talk about with the meditation, the rest of these things. You know, and this thing collapsing because it's part of, like, the overall narrative that our system's going to come down to open up the possibility for something better, right? You know, like this stuff this other stuff that's all happening. I mean, the truth is there. You just have to figure it out. And, you know, I get all these comments, well, he's not dead. They're all actors. You know, well, you don't know that, right? Is he dead or alive? I don't know. Like, I think he's probably, I mean, I usually go on the side of dead because then you don't have a loose end out there that might somehow, you know, get resurrected, you know, whatever that is. But, you know, who knows? I mean, maybe he's still alive, maybe he's dead. He's probably dead, but who knows? And then all the other aspects of it. Like, you know, the thing is, we know his wife is fake as fuck. We know the official story with this individual shooter guy is fake as fuck, right? Those two things. And then, you know, you can kind of fill in the details around some of the things that you know that are pretty obvious. And so Turning Point was a piece of shit organization that was working for Israel, and Israel's got fingerprints all over this. We know Trump has benefited more than anybody else. Trump is going on the attack. We know that this has been a huge distraction for martial law and weird shit. Pete Hegseth met with all the generals. I mean, they're changing the Department of Defense to the Department of War. You know, we're eking closer and closer to World War III. I mean, all these things are going to happen. You know, and so there are going to be real life consequences. World War III, economic collapse, real lifestyle consequences and things. And then there's the option to do better in terms of, like, all right, we know that we were pieces of shit. We knew that, you know, this system was an evil, demonic system that led to, like, horrific outcomes. You know, things that seem like punishments from God, and that we're beseeching God for forgiveness. But that's one of the whispers of the brighter world, beseeching God for forgiveness for more and more aberrant behaviors that have taken us down this disastrous path. And what are we going to do with it? We have to rectify the situation and go back to God and form a relationship with the divinity within us and start including God in our decision making. That our systems and our governments and all these things are built with spirituality as its base, which is a Sajmark teaching. So I know that's the outcome to be thinking about, because our choice isn't now. I mean, I've already made this choice to whatever extent I've made it, right? You know, I mean, I'm committed as much as I, whatever it is, in a slacker kind of way. But people have to make this choice about following and serving the divinity within them and serving their soul's path. Now, everybody, for the most part, is choosing to serve their ego. Their ego is running the show. And so it's obvious that people aren't going to do it now. I can say that with full confidence that the majority of people won't do it now. The sooner you do it, the better. It's like anything else. Get in it. Get in while it's hot, right? Get in while, buy low, right? You know, this is a tougher time to do it. You know, it's an easier time to do it in some ways because you're not. I mean, it's hard because your ego has got so much to distract it, and you have so many things you want to do, egotistically. And so when there's a post-apocalyptic situation, your choices are limited. You're so miserable that connecting to God is much easier to do. But there'll be a choice point when the apocalypse happens for the people that survive. And again, you know, choosing now gives you a chance to come back in a depopulated situation where, you know, human life on planet Earth is, you know, the numbers are so far down that a lot of souls can't get back in. And that's, you know, and then where you are, like you're waiting for something in a not so great place or wherever you are, it's not going to be here. And, you know, if you're not here, you're in a worse place, you know, worse than the world, right? You're in a more hellish type of situation. But anyways, so those things are coming. Choice points and things like this. Here is one last thing here.
Tether themselves to reality, that they would say, I want to fight evil, and they would therefore commit themselves to truth. What I'm seeing right now is just stunning. It really is. I mean, I think his name online is Anomaly. AJ tweeted, is this what happened after the JFK assassination? Did all of his friends race to say, don't investigate, accept the narrative as it is? Maybe we weren't alive. Maybe, AJ.
So that's fucked, right? So, I mean, she's saying that all these people, his friends, and obviously his wife, are saying, accept this bullshit official story. And the movement isn't going to go towards that. If you know anything about the way the human mind works and the way the things have gone in the past, the energy in the movement moves to the conspiracy theorists. It always has. This is why that they have trouble controlling this. Because once people have doubt, the doubt sets in, and doubt is horrible for any system. We have a system that survives on perception. We're surviving on the perception that our money is worth something, the perception that our leaders are not corrupt, evil pieces of shit, the perception that we're a hero and not some evil empire, that we're the good guys and not the bad guys. These perceptions. When the perception falls, the system collapses. The money becomes worthless. The lies, the control of the system, that these people have control over you that they really don't, right? It's an illusion. It's all illusionary. The numbers are always on the side of the mob. Like there's just too many people, and that are necessary too, people who are necessary to keep the system going. You just can't wipe them out, right? Which is, eventually with the robots, that's something different, right? But necessary people that end up turning on the powers that be, we outnumber them, right? That great scene from A Bug's Life where Kevin Spacey as the grasshopper says, the ants outnumber us 100 to 1, right? So, there's this, the ants are having to pay a tax to the grasshoppers. And one of them stood up to him and he says, you can't let one guy stand up to you because they outnumber us 100 to 1. And we can't, if they actually realize this, we're fucked. And so the numbers are always on the side of the masses. And so there's all this effort to keep the masses distracted, all these things. We know this. You should know this. It's Truther 101. And so, again, I'm not advocating for, an overthrow of the government because the system is imploding. The system can't stand. The system can't keep on going. It's been insolvent for a while. It's amazing it's stayed this. It's a weekend at Bernie's. It's like Joe Biden. It's like some auto pen. Like they're just dragging the system around, a dead system, and then just waiting for someone to acknowledge. The people acknowledge that it's dead, and that's when the perception is such that everyone realizes how we're fucked we are. That's why I don't try to wake people up because, there's no backup plan. As soon as we wake people up, then you have the system collapsing. The system can collapse any number of ways, but the perception has to go. That the system is strong, the system is going to be forever. There's this lie that was told to our ancestors when they left their farm and homesteading and their tribes, and they started living in these gross big cities, that the system would be around forever so you could leave your skills behind. You only need to do one skill, one specialized skill, and we'll get money and we'll take care of the rest. And once you do that, the system has to go on forever because now you and everybody else can't survive like homesteaders and tribal people used to survive, right? You can't do it because you don't have the skills anymore. And so when they lied to everybody and said the system would go on forever, they made everybody vulnerable, like the animals in a zoo who no longer can live out in the wild because they don't know. They've grown up in a fucking zoo. They don't know how to be a tiger. They don't know how to be a polar bear. They don't know how to be a koala. They just sit there and wait for the zookeeper to feed them. They don't know how to find their own food. Now the instincts are still there. Oh, there's one more thing I want to find here. Let me go to that. Then I'm going to go to a voiceover here. I got some great comments, and then let's do that. Okay, she's shilling for Club Candace here. So after she finished up with that thing, that's the thing I was listening to. I was waiting for this thing that at some point she was going to have to call out. Turning point in Erika Kirk, because, there's no way her listeners, I mean, you could see from the comments in her comment section that that's the way this was going. And we know this is, there's an energy here, because, I mean, think about the amount of views I'm getting now. I'm getting 4 or 5 times the views I was getting. I was down to about 2,000 views a day. YouTube was fucking me, all the stuff that they've done. And my views were dwindling, and then this whole thing, Charlie Kirk thing, I didn't even know who he was, and I started to cover it, right? It was completely fucked. But here, I ended up listening to this. Again, I think I went for, I don't know where it was, but I heard this in the background, and I wanted to respond to this here.
Finally, getting you some kit. We'll drop more in the future, too. Because that's the vibe. That is the vibe. Go with your gut on things. And I loved that yesterday's episode, the number one comment was that Charlie used to say that, like, go with your gut. There's something there. And I'm realizing more and more, guys, like we have a God intuition. That is our gut. Your gut instinct is your God instinct. And we all know
it's not true. So I want to address this.
Something's not right here. And the media has never worked harder to try to tell us, no, just move along. And yeah.
Okay. So let me address this in a voiceover. Okay, so I want to get back to the zoo thing. I interrupted myself, which I often do. For those of you listening to the Journey series, I'm doing a video on Candace Owens. There's going to be some comments that come after this for the people watching this on my normal channel, and the Journey series people will see. It'll go in reverse order. The comments would already, the first set of comments I covered last night, which are hilarious. And they got a few more comments to get to. So this is about Candace Owens was saying that Charlie Kirk always say, follow your gut. And that your gut instinct is your God instinct. And that's simply not true. Now, I wrote a workbook that I talked about this extensively. It was like a how to transform abuse workbook. And there's some good things in it, but I'd have to rewrite the whole thing. And I mean, it's just not going to happen, right? But in that, I mean, I've talked about this extensively even in these videos. Now, people think about how people say, follow your heart, follow your gut, and this idea of the 3 intelligences. Now, there's the mind, there's the brain, there's the mind. The field is the energetic field is the mind that is connected to the soul and the subtle body, the manas. And then there's the gut, which is got its own set of nerve endings, and there's an emotional intelligence, and then there's a feeling intelligence in the heart. Now, there's also glands. Like, you have these glands in your body, and all your chakras is right next to a gland. Every one of the energetic power points in your body is connected to a gland. So all these things, there's an interweaving of the spiritual with the physical body, right? You have these centers of underutilized, I mean, since we don't have a knowledge base and this knowledge being suppressed, but talking about these 3 things, the gut, the heart, and the mind. So the gut is not connected to God in the sense of being the God intelligence. It's not your God intuition. It's a stupid thing to say, but it's just ignorant, right? And of course Charlie Kirk would say that because he had an underdeveloped heart. And so, again, to whatever way that he's real and Candace Owens is real, the gut is where your anger and your hatred and your fear and your pleasure and your sexual desires and your this is where your whole thing is, right? Your whole that's connected to your physical body, and you do have animalistic instincts there, natural human animalistic instincts that are connected to your gut. You have a sense of survival, a sense of where to find food, a sense of your reproductive capacity. I mean, these things are your physical body's animalistic expression, and not animalistic in some negative way, but your instincts that animals also have, and that's where that comes from your gut, your survival instincts, and these things. And so that isn't it isn't nothing. There is intuition there, but it has to do with your physical body on a primal level. And this is where all the negative things that can go awry, your fear, when you get panic attacks, when you get, you have anger that comes up, all these types of things, right? Hatred, these are where the negatives, if you become gross, and this is why, like, there's Kundalini Yoga, which nobody should be fucking around with. Because if it actually works, And your Kundalini, at the base of your skull, there's a power point. And it's gross material power. It's not spiritual power like people think it is. It has mostly to do with the physical world. And if you are not the purest person, if you are not the most saintly person, if you have any grossness inside your system, if you have any, negative tendencies that are buried in any of these, what are called samskaras, then when the Kundalini power rises up, it'll corrupt you. And you've seen this with a lot of yogic ashrams. There's one in Massachusetts that's happened to, where there was one of my roommates went up to this ashram, and the gurus were fucking all the women, right? These older gurus, and there was not only that, but all the people. It turned out to be like some sort of orgy cult. It was like it went into the papers. It was like it became this gross, like sexually overactive, like they were all like nymphomaniac people, because there's the first spiritual point, and I forget the name of it. That's called like the Muladhara point. It's right above the Kundalini, so it's the first point, the point where all your sexual energy is, and that goes leading into the gut. And if you're gross in those areas, if you have any negative tendencies, which almost everybody has, so there's no purity in there. If you're not pure sexually, you're not pure in terms of your gut, your animal appetites, then the Kundalini just manifests, just empowers that demon. It becomes like a demon inside of you, something that just hijacks your whole system. And there could be physical ramifications too, like incredible pain in the abdomen and things. And so people shouldn't fuck around with the Kundalini. It has no spiritual benefit. In the Sajmark system, if you're the master of the system and you've gone through all the levels of purification, and there's a need for you to have that power in the Kundalini, it's awakened. But for everybody else, it's passed by. It's just too dangerous, because the gut is a place where your animalistic tendencies, your primal tendencies exist, and all your appetites, right? And then we'll get to the heart last. Your brain is, your consciousness and your ego, but there's nothing there that you can't feel love with your brain. You don't feel things with your brain. Things can appeal to you, but they have to appeal to you through your gut or your heart. And so your lower level emotions are in your gut, and your higher level consciousness is in your heart. That's where your soul exists. It's where your soul, the center of your sort of spiritual being exists. The seat of your soul is your heart, and your heart is where you feel love, which is God. That's your God consciousness. That's your God instinct. And people just don't develop their hearts. When you feel love and you feel, people feel love in their hearts. Some people don't feel it at all, and some people it's very infrequent, and it's clouded over by grossness, because also it's where you store all your impressions, which are called samskaras, right? And so if you have a lot of grossness, you can't feel love. And so you don't have this, like, love doesn't exist for you. And so you just have a gut, and you don't feel compassion, you don't feel empathy. Trump is somebody like this, right? Trump is like a heartless person. You can see it, when he can't even, of course it's a fake thing he's doing. But he's, I think Trump's doing God's work in terms of destroying America. That's part of the divine plan. But other than that, Trump is not a heart-based person. Like, you'll meet people whose hearts are so gross, and they might have a good heart once you uncover the grossness. Maybe they covered it with grossness because it was too painful. Their heart was too sensitive. And so that's the case for some people. But, that's what the heart is. The heart's where your empathy is. Your heart's where your compassion is. The heart is where all these things of a higher nature are. And you can't know God with your mind. You can understand godly ways, and you can explore the God. You can contemplate God on a mental level. But we don't have the capacity. So if you think of everything in the world, there's no computer that could hold all the information of the physical reality. And that's to say nothing about the etheric reality that we're disconnected from because we're trapped in a physical body. And so it's hard for us to penetrate to the more infinite etheric reality, right? The physical reality is very finite, but the etheric reality is infinite. And so we could never know all that. We don't have our minds that don't have the capacity, but our hearts can know God and our hearts can expand. In the Sajmark system, the master has a universal heart, right? Like one of the definitions, the third master of the system, Charji, said, one of the definitions of God is a circle whose center is everywhere and his circumference is nowhere. A circle that doesn't have a circumference. So, it's a heart without a circumference. And you could have a heart like that. You can have a heart that has no boundaries. Your heart encompasses the whole universe. But at the center is divinity. And when you penetrate to the heart of the matter, the heart of anything, that's where you find divinity. If you penetrate to the heart of some other person, that's where you find their divinity, right? When you bypass all their egotistical bullshit, all their personality stuff, all their, whatever it is, right? The layers and layers of complexities. When you penetrate to the heart of something, that's where you find God. And so if you cultivate your heart, the purification of the heart, this is where the Sajmark system helps people connect with God, because there's a cleaning process and then there's a transmission that helps people develop a heart that can connect with God. And then you can communicate with God in your soul, and then you can tame your mind. Your mind can be brought in, because your mind doesn't feel something, right? It doesn't have the feelings that, that inspire people to do the right thing. Your brain is just a computer. It's analytical. It's going to do what's best for it. That's why AI is so scary, because AI will just do what's best with the most logical thing, right? The least paths of resistance. And without a heart to govern it and to say, yeah, this is the harder path, but it's the path God wants us on, right? And so without that, those sort of like governor, those things that would stop you from doing the wrong sociopathic thing, without a heart, you're a sociopath. Without a heart and a gut, you are a complete, sociopaths have low emotional threshold. And so their emotions don't play a part in their sociopathic behaviors, right? They need, they need more stimulation to feel something. So they need to do graphic things, thrill seekers, people who need, to do things that are extreme because they are so dead inside. They're so blocked from their guts and their hearts. They don't feel anything. They don't feel emotions. They don't feel feelings. Emotions, lower level emotions in the gut, feelings, higher developed feelings in the heart. But of course, Charlie Kirk said the gut is the God intelligence, because he said empathy doesn't exist, right? And, he said it's a made-up New Age term. But empathy is something that exists in the heart. That's why he could, back some bullshit biblical teaching of the biblical rights of the Israeli people to own the land of Israel. The biblical rights is, his excuse for turning a blind eye to the genocide that was happening to the Palestinian children and people there, right? But a person with a heart can't, even a person with a gut should be able to feel something bad for them, at least even in terms of this idea that something bad's going to happen to you, right? For some idea of karma or something like this. But anyways, I thought I would address this here. And so the thing with the zoo, I was saying, we're trained zoo animals, where you lose the capacity to be what a real human is. And that's happened here in America. And so, they had people buy into that, and now we're dependent on the system, because we don't know how to live independently, because we've lost all these skills. We left our skills, in the homesteads, and everyone has a farmer inside of them. Everyone has a hunter, a farmer, whatever it is, because of our ancestors. Going back, whatever generations of whatever we were before, in terms of people, in terms of whatever else before people, whatever we are, like in terms of our human development. But humans had to learn to be farmers. They had to learn to be builders. They had to learn to be engineers. They had to learn to solve problems. I mean, when I was living on a homestead, which I am now also, when I first started living on a homestead, and I learned to milk cows, and I learned to put fences in, I learned to do all these things. It was like file found, right? It was like this thing existed in me that I didn't know. But it's overwhelming, because even with all this hidden knowledge, it's really hard to develop in a short period of time when you grow up with it. But even then, even the most ardent homesteaders who are growing a lot of their food and, they have some of the old skills, they still don't have what people used to have in tribal situation and the rest of it. And so when a system says give up those things, then that system is saying we're going to be around forever. And it's clearly that was never going to happen because we have a debt-based usury system. And we know what happens to usury systems, Ponzi schemes. They eventually implode because they're built on a sea of lies. And now we're in the implosion part, and our system's coming down, and you have people who don't know. And then, people who are on medications. How many people are on psychological medications or they're using drugs and alcohol to get through their fucking daily lives? What happens when immediately that disappears? Like, just think about, like, if the system collapsed, people, all the things you're addicted to, and you can't get those things. You can't get your coffee. You can't get your beer. You can't get your SSRIs. And all those people going through withdrawal when there's no food, no mass panic, right? All these things. That's what was set up when they lured people off their farms and tribes, or forced them off their ancestral lands and into cities. This inevitable collapse was, this total mind fuck where you have people give up all these skills and you get them unnatural zoo animals, and then they fucking wake up one day and the system's collapsed and they're like, what the fuck do I do? And for most people, it's just, I'm going to curl up in the fetal position and die because this is too overwhelming. So that's the need for pockets of the future and the need for a connection for divinity so that you can navigate, God can help you navigate this, this complete fucking, disaster that's going to befall humanity. All right, so let me get to the comments here. Okay, 8:17 here. I just got around to answering comments. Some wonderful comments I want to get to now because when you see them and for the first time, and the really funny comments, people responding to my my bit about how some guy said, "Why do you keep on talking about your wife? Are you trying to compensate for something?" And I did a whole bit on it, and I guess people liked it because lots of comments about that and jokes. And I said something about Dumbfuckistan, and I got this wonderful comment just now. There's 3 or 4 comments here. Well, here's the first one. This is from poor Erika Kirk. She's going through 5 stages of grift. One of my funnier videos, I think. Coining language like Dumbfuckistan is the same exact vein as calling India a shithole. These comments, this has just been gold, comment gold. Coining a language like Dumbfuckistan is the exact same vein as calling India's a shithole. Are you seriously comparing a real world country where people live in, an ancient country like India or any country at all, with an imaginary construct like Dumbfuckistan? Are you comparing Dumbfuckistan to calling a country a shithole? Like you're already this is beyond reaching. You clearly belong in Dumbfuckistan. Dumbfuckistan is a state of mind. It's wherever you are, Dumbfuckistan goes with you, right? Dumbfuckistan. It's like Boston, Spain for Hilaria Baldwin. Somehow Hilaria Baldwin simultaneously grew up in Boston and in Spain at the same time, and Dumbfuckistan's just like that, where it's a state of mind. Wherever you are, you're in Dumbfuckistan. It doesn't exist on the map. You can't find directions to it. You don't have to Google it. You're either there or you're not. You're either a part of it. And the rest of the people can see you're there, but you can't see yourself. It's like this magical thing. The residents of Dumbfuckistan have no idea that they're there because, hence the name. And so coining language like Dumbfuckistan is the exact same vein as calling India a shithole. It comes from the same very American mentality. So why have a problem with one in the same breath as you use the other. I've never had a problem with any of those things. I mean, if somebody calls a country a shithole country, like, I don't get offended. But when do I get offended by something? Like, I don't get offended by that, but they're not the same thing, right? I wouldn't call a country a shithole country. You know, I've talked about India in terms of what it is now and what it used to be. And what it used to be was glorious, and there's spiritual bones there. It's still great in different ways. But it is a mess. Like, it's one of the most polluted places. I mean, I've talked about the pollution. You know, it's one of the things. There's a great TED Talk where an Indian guy, he slams his country because, you know, they just dump trash. Like, there'd be an open lot. So I lived in, you know, there's a nice neighborhood around the ashram with, you know, pretty expensive houses for India. And there are a lot of people, foreigners living there and call center people. So it was like a rich area, the ashram in Chennai, India. But there were still some empty lots. And all those empty lots, people would just dump their garbage in. And there's garbage on the streets everywhere. You know, when we had the flood, there was this big empty lot behind us. And the empty lot had about 15 or 20 feet of water in it. And we were, you know, we were built up on our apartment we had about 3 feet of water. And when the water was subsided, all the plastic bags and all this garbage and all this shit was still in these trees and shrubs and bushes. And it looked like some demonic Christmas yard, some post-apocalyptic Christmas yard. So, you know, I get why people will look at India on the surface and see that it's, you know, a polluted, not great country, right? But there's a lot more there to it. But I don't get offended by stuff. When do I get offended by stuff, right? So why do you have a problem with one with the same breath as you use another other? Indian cuisine is largely a result of cuisine that was introduced by the Mongol and Afghan rulers, i.e. Central Asians, i.e. people with the stands. No, that's not, you know, I mean, silly. I'm not ragging on people from Afghanistan or Pakistan or any of those things. It's just Dumbfuckistan. And somebody said it to me, why don't you go back to Dumbfuckistan? It came from a comment, which I thought was funny, right? And so it's a funny thing. Dumbfuckistan is funny. Like, it just is, right? But Indian cuisine is amazing, and it doesn't come from these other countries. India is one of the most ancient country. In fact, I believe in terms of the teaching of Sajmark system, the Deccan Plateau was the first place. It's a place where in the Hyderabad area that emerged from the ocean, and it's the world's spiritual center. And their food is, you know, maybe influenced from other countries, because that's one of the great things about India. The Indian people have such a hospitality that even when they were conquered by other countries and other peoples, they just added those cultures to their culture. Their culture is an amalgam of all these other cultures of peoples that live there. It's one of the beautiful things about the country that they don't reject other cultures, even though there's a lot of prejudice and shit now because of the Pakistan thing. But here, you also know India still uses the stan suffix that comes from Farsi, and most of their food dishes still have the original Farsi names. All those contributions that the stans that you ridicule made to India. I'm not ridiculing the stans. Like, that's what you're being a little bitch about, right? Is that what this is all about? Are you a stan? I mean, it could be a stan from Eminem, right? It's just like, it's not a fucking cut against Afghanistan or Pakistan or any of the stans. Like, this is just like, stop being such a little bitch, right? The spiritual practice that I do has influences. The masters of the system were Hindu, but they lived in North India. And they were influenced by Sufi saints, and there's some Sufism in what I do. So, and you know what? I love the whirling dervishes. I think they're like incredible. I have no prejudice against the countries of stans. Dumbfuckistan is funny. Lighten up, Francis. Okay, 2 more quick comments to get to. I gotta get ready and do my nighttime stuff here. The Earth isn't flat or round. It's fucked. I've heard that before, but I thought I would read that because that's funny. And then this was about me talking about, that comment. Paul, don't be a jerk. Why do you mention your wife all the time? Bro, stop flexing that you have a wife. And why do you always brag about having chickens? Many of us are unfortunate enough to engage in ornithology, husbandry, I can't believe I got the ornithology right. Ornithology husbandry. And you are there making us feel like losers. That whole thing's really funny. So usually I don't like sarcastic comments because it's, I read so many comments and I have to read them so quickly that often I don't see that they're sarcastic and the people got banned. But that one was, well done. I should mention that there's so many comments loving Dovfuckistan. It's funny, right? It's not offensive. It's not, The offensive part is dubfuck, right? How do you get this? How do you get offended by this stand part, right? Like you're getting offended by the stand part. It's the dumb fuck that, it's not that we're talking about some country. It doesn't exist. It's a place where dumb fucks exist, right? It could be something like, Berg, dumb fuckberg. It could be like after a city, but it's not nearly as good. Dumbfuckistan has a nice ring to it. You can never underestimate people's ability to get offended by something, right? There's things about every country that you can complain about, right? Like I have multiple complaints and negative things I can say about India and the Indian people. We live in America. We live in an evil empire. People can't say that, right? People can't accept that. Just accept the fucking truth, right? Every country sucks and everybody sucks in some degree or another. I mean, people can be nice and great and do great things and, there's wonderful things about humanity, but there's also a lot of sucky things and those things are more prevalent. Like everyone's just got to lighten up about this bullshit, right? I mean, I could understand people saying, hey, I'm offended you called me a dumb fuck, but this person's right because I used the word stand. That's amazing. Okay, so another comment just came in. Pockets of the truth. Okay, why? Why the truth? Why do you guys do that? You can literally read the fucking name on the video. It's Pockets of the Future. It has nothing to do with the truth, right? It's a comedy channel now anyways, but the concept of Pockets of the Future is people living now like we're going to have to live post the apocalypse. People preparing for the inevitable. Like whatever that means, right? Pockets of future. So when people say pockets of future truth, it's like, I mean, you're trying to rag on me, like it's just, or you're just stupid, right? Pockets of the truth. Do you believe in the firmament? And so I was talking about the flat earth stuff. Again, I got a bunch of flat earth comments, which I always will get. So some random fuck yells something over about the flat earth that's irrelevant to the video and irrelevant to the discussion. Nobody's talking about flat earth. It's like you're walking around all the time going, flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. Look out for the dog poop. Flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. Oh, I just stubbed my toe. Flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. It's like you can't think about anything else. That's the point. Like it's an obsession. It's annoying to the rest of us. I mean, most of the flat earthers have sort of dissipated to some extent. But then I mentioned flat earth, and now I've done it again, and then they have to say fucking something. They just can't say, all right, we've lost this one. This guy's just going to rag on us. We're in let's just let it go, right? And so the other thing is, I used to joke, when you say firmament 3 times and click your heels, you go to the flat earth, right? It's being a binary fuck. It's being 2-dimensional, the flat earth, right? Being a non-3-dimensional person. And again, I don't care about the flat earth belief because when we go outside, you can't tell whether the earth is round or flat or any of those things. I mean, it's not like it's that easy it really doesn't affect us the way that people, it doesn't affect us in ways. And even if it did, it doesn't matter what people believe. I don't give a shit. It's your annoying behaviors. You're one of the most annoying groups. You just can't fucking let things go. Just like this fucking guy who is offended because I put Stan on the end of dumb fuck and it wasn't even my invention. Right? You're just like that guy, right? Like the vegans and there's these other groups. They just can't let you go when you say something that triggers one of their many insecurities and their failed belief system. Pockets of the future. So I used to say firmament, 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 right? There's like a whole thing. Pockets of the truth. Do you believe in the firmament? The Bible says God made the firmament and NASA fakes Earth pictures. What's your opinion on that? Also, Operation Fishbowl or Wiener Van Braun putting the firmament quote on his tombstone. Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know who that is. Yo, you mean Wiener Van Braun? He used the firmament. You're fucking telling me that Wiener Van Braun, he put firmament as on his tombstone? That's proof, fucking positive, that the Earth is flat. Why didn't somebody tell me that earlier? I would have come over with you guys. Firmament, firmament, firmament. I would have joined you earlier if I knew that Wiener Van Braun was on board with that. I mean, you got Wiener Van Braun on your side? Holy shit. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You got Wiener Van Braun. I mean, if you got Wiener Van Braun, I mean, what else you did? You had me at Wiener Van Braun. You know, it's the behaviors with the flat earthers, with the vegans, with a number of these groups. And also, like, lots of people in the truth community, lots of people who are Christian, lots of people who are right wing. I used to be like this about Sagemark, right? I have legitimate personal proof that the Sagemark system can elevate a person from wherever they are when they start off to high levels of spirituality. I've seen it with other people. My own experience is the most telling thing. Even my brother, my older brother, all these people, I've seen it. I've seen it work. And when I first started and I had such a incredible transformative experiences and it changed me for the better, I was really enthusiastic about telling people. And I would get stressed out about it. And I realized that people just weren't going to do it. And even if they did it for years and loved it, they might quit. People who 100% bought into it would quit. I mean, it's just something that happens. And I just realized it didn't really fucking matter, because even if this is the thing that's supposed to save humanity, as long as people are caught in dumb fuckistan, I mean, you're just not going to change people's opinions. People are going to do what they want to do. And most of the time what they want to do is bad for them and bad for everybody else. There's a desperation with the flat earthers and all these other groups, all these other, certain people, certain personality types. There's a desperation. Number one, they want to get you to change your mind. And number two, they just have to talk about it. They want to argue with you. They, stop. Like, it's just annoying. Nobody likes it, right? The QBs were the worst. I mean, the QBs were also, it was like the flat earthers became QBs. And somehow they were even more obnoxious. And they thought they were literally saving the world and the planet from pedophiles in the deep state. And they're, you were not doing shit. Nothing's going to change. We're going to end up exactly where we're going to end up, which is in the shit, right? So, just stop. It's you're just fighting a losing battle. You're not going to wake everybody up. And even if you did, people just will be more awake when the system collapses. And there's lots of people that are just going to die anyway, so it doesn't even matter. There's going to be massive population reduction when this thing goes tits up, right? I got to wrap this up. I went through all the comments. There are a couple comments about the interaction between Trump and Monica Kirk, a.k.a. Erika. People are commenting on me saying Monica as well. But, I just revisited that myself, which is interesting. And this is going to be kind of an epic video. I'm going to get to the Candace Owens thing that I showed you. You've already seen it now, but I haven't done that part of the video yet. And I got more comments to come that I have saved from earlier in the day. And I just want to say one more thing about this flat earth thing, right? And it's the same thing with a lot of these shitty Christians. There's wonderful Christian people, good neighbors, people who represent Christ well. When you really believe in something, you have a passion for something, whether it be your job or your religion or your family, you are an example of that system, right? And I used to feel a lot of pressure because of Sagemark's system to be less of an asshole. And, and it was true. It was a good thing for me to at least work on at that time. And now I just don't care. I'm more about just being who I am. Because, everything else is just a lie. I mean, it's not good if you're faking it, right? But still, within my sincerity and within my authenticity, I can be a good example of Sagemark's system, even though I swear and mock people and do these things or whatever. I can do it in a light way, and, there's a reason for all these things. But, when you represent something, if you really love Christ and you really love Christianity, then stop preaching to people and putting up random fucking John 3:16 quotes all over the place. and holding up pictures of aborted babies and shit. You know, if you want to get rid of abortion, that's not the way to do it. It's not. And, you know, I can understand that you feel desperation that you got to save these children, or you got to save the kids from the pedos if you're a QB, you know, all these things. But, you know, you're not doing it. You're failing. Like, you have to be able to figure out how to successfully accomplish your goal. And if you're trying to win over other people, I mean, that's what you have to do. If you really wanted to be successful, you would go over and win over liberals. You would go over and find a way to communicate with liberals and be able to win them over and come up with some sort of common ground where you didn't see each other as enemies and evil, and you'd win them over. Like, if you wanted to save the country, the liberals would work with the conservatives and find some common ground. You know, they used to be able to do that, but now that's impossible, right? And so if you really want to win people over, stop acting like a fucking moron, or like you're from dumb fuckistan, embarrassing yourself and arguing with people and being hostile and being judgy and shitty and whatever. If you're really trying to convince people of something. And so I see it all the time in the comment section, right? I see people, you know, just acting in a way that's counterproductive, unless you're some kind of paid shill for the opposition and you're pretending to be a flat earther. I mean, unless everyone in the flat earther community is paid opposition shills that have, you know, are working to piss everybody else off, you know. But other than that, you're failing, right? Like, it doesn't fucking work. I said it's an autoban. It's not because I care about what you believe. I don't go to flat earth channels and argue with them and tell them wrong or whatever. But it is something that, you know, when I hear that somebody's a flat earther, I'm like, oh, you know, I'll make a wide berth, right? You know, oh, good, you're a flat earther. Well, let me go across the street. You know, so, I mean, that's from the behaviors, right? And you have that with lots of Christians that come here. I mean, if you really want to win people over to Christ, then and figure out how to be like not so fucking weird and not so obnoxious and not so shitty to other people, and interact with them in a way that, you know, makes them think good things of Christianity. So years and years ago, my family and I, we were like dead broke. Like it was like a cold winter day in November in the mountains of Virginia. Like the cold front had just moved in. And we had this big 16 passenger van. And we were driving home, and it was just like shitty. You know, I mean, my ex was like, she had these psychological breakdowns, and, you know, it was just a bad day. Like it was a really bad day. And our car broke down. And some guy pulls over. He's a Jehovah's Witness. And they do good deeds. Like, that's one of the things they do. Really nice guy. And he diagnoses the problem because he used to own a garage. He does this the guy does this regularly. And he calls the auto parts shop, and he orders the part for me, drives me over, I go pick it, you know, I pay for it, and it's like my last $25, $30 or something, right? It's, you know, something, I forget what the part was, and we go to put it in, and he doesn't have the proper tool. It was some sort of like star bit type of thing. I had some tools in the car, but, you know, I wouldn't have known how to do it without this guy. And this other guy drives by, and he's got a tool truck. This guy waves him down because he knows the guy. And he, you know, we're on this hill. It's like it's a bad situation. There's, you know, my 4 kids and my ex's 2 kids in there. You know, we're all sitting on the road. We were probably 5-10 miles away from home. Like, we can't walk home. It's just like, you know, we don't have cell phones. It's like, you know, early 2000, something like that, 2003 or 4. And we're just, you know, we're in a bad way. And it's just it's like one of those really bad days on top of it, right? And the guy pulls out his this bit, and he says, well, you can just drop it off at my house on the way home, because we have to drive by this other guy's house, right? The guy who provides the tool. And so I put the part in, and the guys, you know, thank the guy, whatever, he helped me. You know, and like, I have a high opinion of Jehovah's Witnesses ever since. That's my one interaction, other than when I was a kid and they came door to door. And I'm like, well, Jehovah's Witnesses are great, right? Because of that, you know, that person did God's work and whatever. Like, he was very helpful, and, you know, saved my family from a really bad fucking situation, right? Like, sent to us by God. And someone who was willing to be in a good deed type of way, there's, he wanted to recruit people and things like that. I mean, there's reason for doing it. But he reflected good on his religion, right? I know that they have a quota system, whatever it is. But, that really didn't matter when my family and I was desperate, and this guy was helping out, right? And very cool about it. I'm just a nice person. Just, it was like a good person to be around. He had good energy. It was just, helpful, all these things, right? And so you don't see that on the internet. You just see people being obnoxious, and they wonder why people don't want to listen to them. You're trying to argue your way and mansplain your way into, your position and your point of view. And it never fucking works, right? Like, it doesn't fucking work. You have to see people through the eyes of the person you're interacting with. At some point you're going to realize, oh my God, I look like a crazy fuck, right? Like you're sitting there talking and realize what it's like for the other person to hear you talking, right? And, you have to get into that other person's mindset. Like, some liberal feminist bitch, and you're starting to, get aggressive and angry, and she's like, oh my God, you're being threatened, this kind of stuff. This is how she's going to see you, right? So like, you don't do that. Like you can't win people over that are fucked in the head already. And then you're going to, you're just going to make it worse. And you do. Anyways, I'll continue this tomorrow. Okay, so I'm kind of in the sweet spot where I've edited the rest of this video. I did the voiceover introduction, and I just have this one voiceover left to do. It's 12:30, just ate lunch, went for a walk with my dogs. Got a couple of good outdoor projects. I'm going to cut some of the lawn, and I'm going to, I'm trimming these branches down with the chainsaw around the pawpaw trees. And I'm starting to, I want to expose them. These pawpaw trees are fruit trees I talked about earlier. So I got these projects, it's like my whole day is mapped out, and it's pretty nice out there. It's still like summer out there. We've had this prolonged late summertime. It's always good, like when I'm ahead of the game. I'll start my next video, read some more comments, do some more comment stuff for my next video, because I think the comments are just going to be golden for a while. And I got a few more comments to get to, but I want to sort of have a callback to the flat earth and a little bit about this person who accused me of being, I don't know, prejudicial or racist because of Dumbfuckistan, right? Something that I would have never, like all the things that people get butthurt about. If you have dumb fuck on one side and Stan on the other, you think that they would, get upset about the dumb fuck part. But this person was really upset about the Stan part. So the thing about the flat earth stuff, after a while you spend some time, you get really upset about something. And everyone has their core wake-up issue, the thing that woke them up. And they have their thing that upsets them the most. You have some pizza people. You have some 9/11 people. You have some people that do with the COVID stuff. And now, whatever these things that people were, Jeffrey Epstein were graduates of the Pizzagate people. And then some of them became Cubies. But you have these things that, was the first thing that you were like outraged about. And at some point you realize justice was never going to be served. And that's a continuing thing throughout this process. The truth never fully comes out in a way where it's admitted to. The truth is there, but it's for you to find individually and not something the official people could do. And as you go through it, you realize that the system depends on evil. That what the CIA does and what these people do, the so-called controllers, the evil stuff that they do is to keep the system going. They may enjoy it, but whether they enjoy it or not, it has to be done. Like, you can't have this system be a good system where everything's fair and honest and, people are good people are connected to God. It's not that kind of system, right? It's a demonic system. And so you got to feed the demon, right? You got to feed the beast. And so when you realize that, it's like, all right, whatever. And that's when you just realize there's only one positive outcome, and that's when the system comes down. And when the system comes down, we all suffer, like materially. It's just inevitable. I mean, it's maybe few people won't suffer, but the majority of people will. And so, that's the idea of pockets of the future here. So when you kind of realize that, you realize this stuff isn't that important. Like, you don't have to be a dick. You don't have to be some, OCD dick about flat earth or any of these things. Stop thinking that it fucking matters. It doesn't fucking matter, right? You're not going to change anybody's mind. And even if everyone believed in flat earth, it's not going to make a fucking shred of difference, or any of these things, right? And you just have to, take that in consideration, because you're just bumming people out. The one thing that you don't want, which we have and will always have, is division. Like in the truth community, if you ever have a movement, it's the division that tears it apart. If you have a family unit, you have a team, you have people working together to accomplish a common goal. As soon as there's infighting, everything else stops. And this, we've seen it. All of us have seen it in our own lives and in the lives of the, outside in teams and countries and things. Civil wars, I mean, they're the worst possible thing. And, for me, if I rag on people about something, it's for things that I've been able to do. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm kind of a slacker. I don't care. I'm just whatever. I mean, I'm not a highly motivated person. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm just not like, if I can do things, I mean, there's certain things I have talent for that maybe you don't have talent for. And you don't have the kind of, I have some work ethic or whatever. But, things that are based in just changing your point of view and accepting reality the way it is, everybody can do it. Like everybody can just let things go and move on, right? So, I had something real in the Sajmark system that changed people internally. And without a shadow of a doubt, it made people more loving. Like if people embraced the system, your capacity to love was, enhanced by many times. Your heart grows, like the Grinch, the fucking Grinch story. Your heart grows. You could have a shitty heart, a small heart, but it grows, your etheric heart. And that's like undeniable for the people who do the system. And so there's no other system out there that helps people in terms of their ability to love. Like that's just, and your ability to love is your relationship with God, because God is love. And also act as a conduit to let that love on an etheric level flow through you. When you do your practice, when you go to gatherings and you go back to work, you go into your family, the love exudes from your system. It just happens when you do the 9 o'clock prayer. And so it's a system that makes people more loving, which can only be a good thing, right? Like how could that be bad, right? So how could that be anything but transformational? And it does a number of other things, but that's just one of them. And so I had a real thing that could change humanity, because we have a human being problem. We don't have a fucking Israel problem. We don't have a right-wing problem or a left-wing problem. We don't have a problem with the other species on the planet. We don't have a dinosaur problem. We have a lion problem. We don't have like all these things. We don't have, our big problem is that human beings are sucky, that we're self-sabotaging, we're immature, and we keep on trending towards the lower end of, our egotistical side. There are natural problems and there's whatever there is in life, but all the drama and all the bullshit would disappear if people were better, or at least up into the point where people are better, that part of the drama would disappear. So anything that transforms human beings, which the Sajmark system does, gets to the heart of the matter, the heart of the problem, which is human beings have to become more saintly, more spiritual, more loving, and more service-oriented and less egotistical. I think everybody would agree with that. And that system, the Sajmark system, the Gratefulness Meditation, I have a YouTube channel that's free for people to try. That's what it does. It helps you to change into a better person, pulls out the best in you, the soul in you, pulls out your higher nature. And so we've seen this in the past. There are higher developed souls that have existed on planet Earth, and they are transformative. If it's only one or two people or a group of small people that do this, that are part of the movement, it's been transformational. We've seen it in, of course, the religions that are now corrupt and failed, but they have brought in some good qualities and knowledge and things that people are unaware of. Having spiritual people come down, uplifting humanity, you wonder where we would have been without them. We probably would have been extinct by now, right? So, they have helped individuals, and we know people can achieve these higher states of consciousness. So there is this thing with succession, right? When you have a succession of a king, a president, when Trump goes, where they replace him, this thing with Charlie Kirk is there, right? You have this stuff, this idea of succession. And, in the spiritual realm, the idea is the one thing that Sizemore had on these other systems in terms of succession was the previous master could transmit his own essence into his disciple through this transmission practice. The essence of his spiritual accomplishments, like basically his soul, merging with the disciple, so that that essence, even though they're different personality types and they're different people, the essence that made the master, the system, the master, could be transmitted. And even with that, there was the first master of the system, Lalaji. He died with, there was no organization. He just conducted meditations from his house. He had about 200 or so people that followed him. Of all those people, 5 accepted Babaji, the next guy, as the master. And a bunch, maybe as many as 20 of them, tried to kill Babaji in various ways, poison him, spiritual warfare, doing yogic attacking on him, on his, doing things trying to steal his spiritual powers and accomplishments, just like bullshit stuff, right? So in terms of the succession, there was more people that tried to kill Babaji than accept him, right? And then when Charji, the third master, became the master of the system, again, he had the sitting from Babaji in the Danish airport, and he, the sitting where Babaji transferred his own condition to Charji. And, he traveled around with Babaji, and it was very clear that he was the next person. But Babaji was this Yoda-like figure. He was 5 foot, 5'2", uneducated, weighed about 120, 30 pounds. I mean, really small person. And he just had this loving essence. And he didn't confront people. He wasn't a disciplined person. He didn't lecture people. He didn't, he didn't correct them. He thought it all could be done spiritually. And when he died, it was on his deathbed, he said to Charji, he used to say to people, only forbidden is forbidden, which all these boomer hippies that were coming from America and Europe said, only forbidden is forbidden. These were love, sex, and rock and roll fucking hippies, right? And so when they heard that shit, they, and no, just not in, but also in India. And he said to Charji, you have to bring discipline to the mission. Now, Charji was a CEO of his company. He was like 6'3". He was worldly, and he was sort of like he would act almost like a bouncer for Babaji, because, he had to get people out so Babaji could get his rest, and, so he had to be gruff sometimes. And a lot of people took it the wrong way, didn't like him. And so he, 90% of the people didn't, Babaji had about 5,000 to 10,000 followers, people from around the world. And they just didn't like Charji at all for that reason, for various reasons. And he was poisoned. A guy showed up with a gun to shoot him. And Babaji's kids claimed the lands, the ashram that belonged to the mission. Again, this is a donation-based organization where the masters of the system don't get paid. And there was multiple lawsuits over the ashram. There's multiple different splinter groups. And Charji had to go door to door and win people over. People that hated him. I mean, it was fucking brutal. And I read his letters from that time. There was a book that never got published, but my ex was one of the editors, so I got access to that book. And then also there was his diaries that got published. And I read the diaries at the same time I was reading the letters, and it was fucking painful. I mean, fucking pain. Like, I don't feel that kind of pain, and I felt really bad for him. It was just depressing, like what people were doing to him, what he was going through. And he seemed like this big tough guy. I mean, he was just somebody who didn't have insecurity. He seemed like just a very competent person. He was good at pretty much everything, but he was sensitive underneath that, and it was fucking painful for him, right? And so these are the things that happen in succession. So the fourth master, Charji, went out of the way to make sure that what happened to him and what happened to Babaji didn't happen to the fourth guy. It was very clear, and he brought discipline into the mission. The liberals were pissed at him because he brought discipline into the mission and things, and he brought in rules that Babaji himself never, could feel like he could impose, because he said the forbidden is forbidden thing. And so when Charji did that, they went off and they all got fucking goofy. And so, there was more discipline. And so when Daji, the Kamash Patella, became the fourth master of the system, people were relatively well behaved, and they accepted the guy, and then he turned into a total piece of shit. And so, I mean, it's just Like, this is fucking human nature. It's like hard to see because these are all spiritual people. A lot of these people are spiritual people who are saints and people who are involved with, spiritual people in the past. Of course, like with Jesus, he had Judas, which was the big betrayer. Judas sold him out, killed him. I mean, this is, he Judased him. I mean, Judas is is a term, right? But Peter denied him, and, Peter was his successor, and Thomas doubted him. So 3 out of the 12. And we don't know about the other ones. Master Chargy said that 1 out of 12 will betray you. Like, of your disciples, like it happens. It's just there's always that. It just always happens, right? And what are the people who didn't like Peter? What about the other disciples who didn't like Peter? Because I'm sure some of them didn't like him, or some of them thought they should be Jesus' successor. This is the kind of shit that people do, and so it's what wrecks spiritual organizations. It wrecks those things. And so I had some good experiences with Daji before he was master of the system. He was a really good preceptor, a spiritual person. We were kind of like friends, and we had, mostly good interactions. But then I was like, man, this guy is fucking, and he was starting to just do stupid shit, right? I mean, he was like a moron, and he said stupid shit. He completely failed on COVID. He was a pharmacist, but even his positions on COVID and what he was worse than like Bill Gates. I mean, he was like horrible. I mean, the complete opposite of somebody who would be someone who could speak truth to power and who could, was a godly person. He just sucked. And I was like, my God, this guy is not doing it. Like, it was hard for me to see. It was, painful. Like, it was painful because something that I, really love and depend on was crumbling right in front of me, right? I mean, real shit. There's not some, thing I hear about on the internet, some, thing that doesn't affect me. It totally affected me. I mean, and then the people in the mission were turning on me. I went through this divorce and, I looked bad. It was a whole fucking thing, right? And so the whole thing was really painful for me to go through. And painful for the sense of, I was counting on this as the hope for the future of humanity. The transmission cleaning in the system, right? It's a real fucking, big deal. Those of you who were around this back in 2020, 2021, 2022. And so I started to find out this information. And I posted a video in which I called Daji a little bitch, which is, I don't really regret it, but it was a little bit harsh. And before that, I had posted some of my videos on Facebook because, none of the people who did the practice watched my videos. They wouldn't get them if they did. There were some truthers in the mission, and there's literature, and these Whispers of the Brighter World are full with truther shit, but they just didn't gravitate to it. And so, I had a lot of these people were friends, and I posted one of my videos on somebody's timeline. Something, I posted it somewhere, maybe in a group or something, and these videos that got about 2,000 views, they were about my spiritual journey. All of a sudden, people in the mission were reading. Like, they went up to 8,000, 9,000 views, and some of these videos were like 4 hours long. And it became a whole fucking thing. And I became the voice of the opposition, which I didn't like. People started to put me in memes, like me going at Daji. It was a whole fucking weird shit. And like, I felt like, these people didn't have the courage to come up and stand up for themselves. But the real catalyst for me, and there was a number of things that Daji did that were fucked up. And one of them was I later found out after I posted this, people started to show up and say that there was this thing called Brighter Minds program, which was a fucking complete cult-like scam where they were pretending kids could, by doing some of these weird fucking, doing some kind of these balancing exercises, which may have some benefit, like tapping your head and rubbing your belly. The kids could rewire their brain and learn to smell colors and solve Rubik's Cubes by smelling the cube or tapping the cube and hearing it, like stupid shit like that. When everyone knows they're peeking through their blindfold. And it was a scam somebody else had invented in some other spiritual organization that had already been debunked, and Daji was too stupid to recognize it, and he bought into it like a fucking moron. But that came later. But the thing that triggered I knew this thing was fucked was when Daji joined this thing called the RSS, which was a right-wing Hindu, pro-Hindu, anti-Muslim paramilitary organization. It was like, almost like something that would be like a hate group in America. And, there was none of that shit in Saj Park, and we weren't supposed to be political. We weren't supposed to get involved with any of this kind of bullshit. We were supposed to, it's only spirituality will save this world, right? That's why I say that. That comes from Babaji, the second master. That only God can save this world, not fucking any bullshit politics, any of these things. But to be on the wrong side and be prejudicial, and I remember some comments Daji made, and he was from the northern part of India, and it seemed like he said some things that were very anti-Muslim. And there were Muslim people that were doing our meditation, and some of the practice came from, there was some Sufi gurus, which is Sufis are like a spiritual branch of the religion of Muslim. They're like spiritual people, like saintly people that grew up as being, in the Muslim religion, and they graduate to the spiritual wing, right? Which I've talked about extensively in some of these voiceovers. And so this person that said that, like, I have some sort of prejudice against Pakistans or the stands, it's silly, because that's the reason that was like the final clue that Daji was fucked, right? And so I absorbed all this, and, over time, I made a bunch of videos just showing what a piece of shit Daji was, because that's what I can do. Like, I can really show other people that people are piece of shit. It's a gift. And they copyrighted it, almost took my channel away from me. I posted some of these videos, and I said, all right, fine. I'm done with this thing, because, the people, none of them reached out to me. There's a few people, one guy I call the Daji Truther. But for the most part, nobody reached out to me. They didn't, which I was fine with, because I was over the whole thing. Because there are people who have doubts and people who, but it wasn't my job to wake them up, right? And I couldn't stop this thing. It was already, Daji was the official master of the system. There's no fucking way to combat it. And, I just let it go. As painful as it was, and I was able to do that because I can do shit like that. And that's a real thing, not some bullshit flat earth thing or some of these other things. And so, clinging to these things just makes you be hateful, makes you be, just a contrary person. It just makes you into a dick that nobody likes. And at some point you got to realize, yeah, this isn't working. What's my goal here? Why do I feel so strongly about something, and why am I just banging my head up against the wall? Because, that's all that you can do. And so it's like some point you realize, this thing's going to run its course, and you have to navigate this in any way possible. And the best way to do this is develop your heart. I mean, in terms of what I see, the best way to do it is develop your heart and connect to the divinity within you, so God can help you navigate through this difficult period. And people who do that will be valuable to God, and that'll, your situation will be drastically improved because you're contributing to the future, right? Your pockets of the future. Anyways, let's get to the comments here. So there's a number of comments here. They're not in order. Let's see what this one is. That are about, well, please look into the movie called The Year of the Head, of this year, Head of State. The same actress, Carla, with an Italian last name, Carla something. Actress that played Erika Kirk type character in Snake Eyes plays the Vice President Elizabeth Kirk, who is the bad guy in the film, and Assassins. Her real name is Carla Gugino, and Carla is the female version of Charles. I think it's a female version of Carl, but whatever. Somebody sent me that video, and I'm like, yeah, that's, I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter. This person writes, and I got a bunch of comments like this. Hey, Paul, long time no see. I had to resub to your channel. Just want to let you know, I did notice that she threw up the devil's sign at the memorial when she was standing next to Trump. Take a look. Blessings to you. Yeah, I had already covered that. But there are people who showed back up. I am furious with YouTube, is another person. I've never seen you in my. I've seen you in my. I never see you in my feed anymore. I've really needed to hear your voice many times over the last few years, but you've been completely hidden from my feed. It's infuriating. So happy to hear you again. That's great, but like the way that you can combat that is, I've said this over and over again. people who are shadow banned like I have been, and then every once in a while YouTube like sends some notifications out. But I put content up every day, and because people can't keep up with the content, the algorithms work against me, plus just the shadow banning aspect of it. And so the way that you do it is you leave a tab open or you search for me, right? I search for people all the time or things all the time. You have to search for, you're not going to, even then, sometimes YouTube will game the search engine results. So you have to scroll through. But, I have a backup channel, Apocalypse Now, and Gratefulness Meditation with 2 F's or 2 Grateful, 2 L's. So it's spelled with an extra L, so it's easy to find. Gratefullness meditation instead of gratefulness. And so, and from that, in the description box are all my channels. My backup channels, my other channels. And so, but bookmarking this, you have bookmarks on your browser. There's a way to combat this, and you have to do it because, they can disappear people and they've already gamed the search results. I've talked about this over and over again. YouTube decided to promote certain channels, and that maybe is going the way because they just settled their lawsuit with Trump for $24 million. So that might be a positive thing for this. But either way, I don't know why people are being notified all of a sudden. But if you want to see future content, then you have to search for it, you have to bookmark it, and you have to do everything possible. You can friend me on Facebook or you can, on Instagram. But the notification system is broken. You can't just hope that your videos are going to show up in your feed. My son told me about this for, channels that had nothing to do with truther channels. He said there's some channels you'd watch one video and they'd recommend stuff from that channel for months. And there's other channels that you really liked. He said you watch multiple videos and they never recommended those channels. You have to go search for them. And YouTube is, whatever their algorithms and their bot shit is doing, it doesn't work. It's a broken system. Another person writes, so glad you're back in my notifications. And so, again, I should say this at the beginning of the video, but, subscribing and getting notifications are great. But other than that, here's another one here I got. One person wrote, I meant to do this before, repent. And then they wrote another comment that's before that. The Bible is the word of God of heaven. The comment before that is you are wrong. And so, this is a dumb fuck comment because if you are a person seeking the truth, so first of all, if you believe that there's a deep state, that there is a shadow government, and that our system has been corrupted, and you believe in corruption, and you believe that things can be corrupted, and often are, then why wouldn't your religion be corrupted? What would make your religion not be corrupted? And it has been corrupted. There's been so many scandals in all of the Christian religions and the religions of the world. There's been all these fucking bad things that have happened. And the corruption is overwhelming. And so those corrupt people are in charge of editing the Bible, which has been edited. And so even if the Bible started off as the Word of God, which no book does, godly words can come through a person, but there's no one word of God. That's some bullshit thing your religion told you, and you should be able to see through it. You can still believe in Jesus, and you can still believe in your religion. You can still believe in the Bible, but take it with a grain of salt, realizing it's a flawed book. There's a part of the Old Testament where King David, before he's King David, wants to marry the daughter of a king. So he goes to the guy and says, I want to marry your daughter. And the guy's like, doesn't like David. And he goes, oh, you got to go you can marry her, but I want 100 foreskins from the Philistines. Right? There's a very violent, brutal fucking book, right? In the whole thing, the whole Old Testament's a fucking mess, right? And David's a go-getter. So he brings back 200 foreskins. So that means he went out and murdered 200 Philistine people. Maybe they were soldiers, maybe they weren't. And then he went and cut the foreskin off their dead bodies. Or, maybe he outsourced it, either way. But he strung them all together and he drops them at the feet of this king. And because of that, he gets to marry this daughter. That's fucked, right? And the Bible's full of shit like that. Animal sacrifice, child sacrifice. All these things. And there's just so many things in there that are fucked. That can't be the word of God. cutting off other dead dudes' foreskins can't be the word of God. Like fucking, wake the fuck up, right? And so again, if you can't do that, this isn't go. There's a train leaving for Dumbfuckistan anytime you want to hop on it, and so like it just isn't, October 10th, CK comes back to life as the Antichrist. I thought that was pretty funny. Then on October 10th, that'll happen. And starting to wonder if Charlie, who organized the hit on himself, did get away from all of them. I should have done that comment earlier. I mean, I kind of maybe made that joke myself about his wife, but now his whole establishment, right? And it very well could be. That's a very realistic, whatever it was. I have to correct. Well, I already did this comment. Well, that's all the comments. So I look forward to doing the next video. This thing's getting real. Hopefully, we'll see some sort of response from Turning Point and Candace Owens thing. I mean, they're not going to address it directly, but they do address the things that she says. They don't respond to her specifically, but they kind of have to. And again, they share an audience. Okay, so there's Turning Point people are also Candace Owens fans because she worked with them, and they have a cross audience. And I know the majority of people are on Candace's side, and I know that if they had to choose between Candace and fucking Erika Kirk, they're going to choose Candace because Erika Kirk is a disaster. I mean, it's only the most dumb fuck people will buy into that stuff. Like she's a mess. I mean, they all have to, even if they're not saying it out loud, got to be like, what is this bitch doing? Right? It's bad. So, it's kind of an interesting thing. It's not going to go anywhere, but it's getting good. To the people, I enjoy watching the Apocalypse, and that's one of my channels. My backup channel is called Apocalypse Now, for that reason. Well, anyways, that's it for now. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.